Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about tonight because tonight you might want to say we look to the past, but we turn to the future because our guest is one of the most important links, I would arguably say, in backyard wrestling history to where we are today. You know, we talk about all these big super shows that have popped up here over the past year or so. Summer Bash, Riot in the Ring, the All Wrestling Matters Hardcore Tournament, the Backyard Havoc, Devil's Playground, a Backyard Brawl. But you could arguably say that none of it would take place if it wasn't for, well, the Global Backyard Wrestling News Network. And our guest here was a huge part of that. And his humble beginnings started all the way back in 2007 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the woods behind the apartment complex he lived. And he was a juggalo. And who knows, guessed that would have led him from going to being a juggalo to being one of the very best to have ever stepped foot in the backyard wrestling circuit. He held championship after championship. He had war after war. Chris Castle certainly comes to mind, and one that also certainly is going to come to mind and come to its head, maybe rear its ugly head, next weekend in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he's going to be wrestling Marcus Centofonte, and he's going to talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about that Kurt Angle roast, and we'll talk about a couple of recents that have come on Sportswire Radio that have become institutions. And how about this guy I'm wearing a shirt of? Sean Jovi, America's resident rock star, a man that arguably is the last link of the Global Backyard Wrestling Network to be still in the yard relevant. And then, how about Remy Ravage? Remy Ravage, who's recently made a huge comeback in the backyard wrestling circuit. She's the XCW International Champion. I'm sure we'll definitely get a thought or two from our guest on that. And this guy who, by the way, came onto Sportswire Radio 2 weeks ago, who used to be Rad Hazard, but he goes by the name now Rad Dad Radley Belmont. By the way, he's only wrestled the Rock and Roll Express a few years ago. And by the way, has only been the GTS Intercontinental Champion and is feuded with a who's who of people throughout the independent wrestling circuit. But a who's who of other people in the GBYWN have also been a part of the independent wrestling circuit and been to other huge places. In many ways, they've been on prime time, the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the true biggest stage of them all. And our guest can talk about that. Our guest can also maybe give some insights on what he thinks about today's yarders and maybe some of the things that he and many of his brethren in the GBYWN had did. And where do we go from here with him? And is this it, or is there another left one or two in there? Who knows? Who knows? Whatever it might be. But I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we can never go forward without looking back to the past. But I know one thing, our guest will never be left behind in the past, because I'll tell you this, he might be friends who make media, and he might do a pretty good job in making that media. But I know one thing, he ain't far from done yet. Even though there was that video that circled a few weeks ago and on Sportswire and a few months ago with the old GBYWN mockery with Rad Hazard coming back there. But trust me, this community, we will do our best to continue to hold that torch and hold that torch to flame and make sure it burns as bright as could be, thanks to all those from the GBYWN over the past 15 plus years that have continued to do what they do best. And by the way, maybe we'll even talk about some of our guest music dalliations. I mean, we'll certainly dilly-dally in that. But, ladies and gentlemen, usually I give that big introduction, that big intro, because after all, we're in prime time, the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the only platform, as I stated, where all wrestling matters. But unfortunately, my voice literally cracked yesterday, and I'm trying my best, as hard as I can, to keep up with it. So I'll do maybe sort of, I guess, a half of the usual introduction. I know I'm going to probably definitely disappoint our guest, because he will have to understand that I've done about 182 or 183 shows in 4 months, and I dare challenge anybody anywhere that has done that many shows. But I will say, though, we do have something for him tonight, which we will present in honoring of everything that he's done for us in the backyard wrestling circuit. And I'll do, I guess, sort of the introduction. It won't be quite what Sean Jovi gets. It won't be quite what Remy Ravage has gotten, or certainly Rad Dad, but I'll certainly make sure that he'll be known forever as the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be in the backyard wrestling circuit. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to finally have this man here just days away from that historic GBYWN BYW Link reunion show. And ladies and gentlemen, let's get right to it. So, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, a true legend in the backyard wrestling circuit, a man that was an admin in the GBYWN, a man that has held belt after belt, traveled to place after place, from the humble beginnings of the Juggalo to a man that's even made music that Eminem and MC Serch would blush for. Maybe anybody else in between, Macklemore and any other rapper. Certainly, he's got more game than Vanilla Ice, and he's got a lot more game than almost anybody else out there in the backyard wrestling circuit. He is the owner of Golden Triangle Media. His name is, simply put, Sick Rick. My friend, how are you?
Man, I'm great. And don't do yourself any disservice. That was fantastic. That was no
yeah, but usually I do 15-minute ones. We do intros like Michael Buffer, Bruce Buffer, but unfortunately, I had on a guest. I obviously wasn't one of the more memorable ones that have come onto Sportswire. Let's just say I did one of those, and it was like, oh, and then the whole day I've been basically not even talking, nothing, just to let me get through this interview. So I'm okay. I'm back to normal. That was the best I could do, and hopefully
it
by
was great.
tomorrow,
it was fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Well,
Man.
it's not what I'm
to
used to here. Not what I'm used to. Not what the audience is. But it's an absolute honor. And first of all, so nice to meet you. I obviously want to give a huge thanks to Sean Jovi, America's resident rock star, and Rad Dad Radley Belmont for the nice recommendations. And how you feeling here tonight?
I'm a little under the weather. I'm getting over a sickness, but thankfully we're on the backside of it because we've got a big weekend coming up here real quick. So I'm trying to push through. Just took a little medicine a little bit ago, and we're just fighting the good fight. Got a little scruffy, so I can let my barber take care of it before the show, and we're just ready, man. We're in chill mode.
What do you mean? You don't want to keep it till showtime with the beard? Maybe it gives you some extra, extra grit?
No, I got to have the barber take care of this. You know what they say? You feel good, you fight good. I got to look good.
Well, I haven't touched this in about 6 years, so let's just say that
yeah.
You might, by the grace of God, can go to the barber, but I don't think that my supporters would certainly be too thrilled about that. But that's okay. We are here nor there. We will certainly talk about that one day. But let me start off here. Let's go in the current. I'll certainly go to the past, but I want to start off here kind of in the current. For those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio in prime time, the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the only platform where all wrestling matters, is we are now on that road to 1,000 subscribers. Sick Rick, tell us about what's in store next weekend in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and why are we having this GBYWN BYW Link reunion show?
Well, I think the most important thing is just the title of the show, right? It's called It's Not Dead Yet, and it's more than it. It isn't backyard wrestling. It isn't our community. It is us as people, man. And life goes by so quick. We made so many great friends while we were doing this stuff. We were a lot of us ended up at each other's weddings and traveling across states just to hang out with people for the weekend, not wrestling related. We became legitimate family throughout this process. And for the last, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years, we kind of lost connection with each other a little bit, and a little bit maybe to do with the pandemic and growing up and everybody getting jobs and really digging into the family life and getting married and all those things. And I just felt that the community was being left behind, at least our part of the community,
Okay.
And it was something that I felt was important to get everybody back together, at least for one more time. But we never got to say goodbye. We just all stopped one day.
Why did you guys stop? I mean, that period of time, I mean, you guys didn't do anything. I mean, we know what the GBYWN was. 80 plus promotions were in it. There were people from all over the world. Australia, the UK, everywhere in the United States. Canada was a part of it. So, I mean, was there any regrets into why things ended the way they did?
No, not really. I think a lot of it had to do with just being in that sweet spot of being too old to act like a kid and not being old enough to miss it. So we were all late 20s, and we were okay. We got to stop doing this. We have to really focus on real life stuff. A couple of our biggest promotions, it was New York Extravaganza would have a show every year, and BXW would have two big shows every year, and those were like the three main shows, and both of those venues were lost to whatever reason they ended up getting lost to, whether it be the owners no longer wanting us there or family or what have you. But
Sure.
like losing three of our biggest shows every year, it was kind of like, well, what are we even doing out here then?
Sure. It was interesting that you talked about being at people's weddings and all the friendships that you made because Rad, when he was here a couple of weeks ago on Sportswire, talked about the fact that 90% of his friends came from wrestling. And I thought that was so fascinating that almost all of his friends were from wrestling. Was that the same for you and some of the rest of the guys in the GBYWN?
I would say yeah, because we spent so much time together. So like your home fed, whoever you like came up around was probably your group of best friends, most likely.
Mm,
Because not only would we be traveling once or twice a month, we would also do 3 or 4 home shows every month. So we were always around these people, and then you would have the people that you talk to every day on the internet. You can't wait to go see them again in 30 days, 28 days, what have you, however long it takes to get back out. And it was one of those things where it just felt like we were going to be young forever, and these were our friends for the rest of our lives, and we were never going to lose touch with them. Like, how could we ever? And then sometimes you do, and it sucked. So I wanted to do my best to like reclaim the community for the community.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to put up the poster for it in a second. I'm going to put up some links so people can tune in and join the conversation. So you got to be excited then to get back out there. I mean, that's got to be exciting that you've got basically this huge show coming up in your backyard, figuratively and literally. And I mean, you've got a great list of talents that are going to be this. So it's got to be exciting then that you're going to be back out there and such.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever we were doing this, I was more or less like Rad put it as the kingpin of the Midwest.
Yeah,
And like I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I definitely had a lot of pull, and the
sure.
the majority of the best stuff that came out of the Midwest came through Pittsburgh. So we had like a 2-year run where Backyard Supremacy was like that was our main show, and that was the one that everybody wanted to go to, and that was the one that everybody wanted to watch after it was over. It was very important for the community to know what was going on in Pittsburgh. And we were also kind of the first group that fell off because a lot of the Midwest guys that were coming through Pittsburgh, instead of staying in the backyard circuit, decided to go pro or even create their own professional companies like Matt Nix did. He created Freelance in Chicago, and that boomed. And a lot of our Midwest guys, while, I mean, I hate to say it, but you don't necessarily have to be a trained professional wrestler to get booked on professional wrestling shows in the
Yep.
Midwest. So a lot of our guys didn't necessarily have to go through the channels. They just had to say, here's a backyard wrestling match. Can I wrestle on your pro show? And a lot of the indie bookers out there would say yes. So a lot of the Midwest guys just kind of fell off a lot quicker than the Northeast guys. So the Pittsburgh scene was almost taken away from us a little bit, and
Mm,
everything was given to like the Midwest guys, or the Northeast guys rather. So like New York and like out towards Allentown, Pennsylvania on the other
okay.
side of the state. That's kind of where everything ended up being centralized. So
I
being
would
able to bring
imagine that when we're talking New York, because I'm in New York City, we're talking about upstate New York and sort of the middle part.
Cooperstown,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of the southern tier Hudson Valley. Because I'm in New York City. Because I'm like, we don't have backyard wrestling in New York City. Because you can imagine
I mean,
we
not
didn't have
anymore, not without 2KW.
no, but that wasn't in a classical. Like everybody's got this big trampoline set up, this big ring, this
Right.
big even floor. Nobody had that. There was nobody in New York. So even if you had a backyard, I mean, you weren't going to be allowed, or you didn't have that kind of size to pro. That's why I always, so when we talk about New York, I usually have to, for some of my listeners out there, have to specify we're talking about the other part of the state because downstate here. I mean, Long Island did have actually. There was an article years back before the GBYW, and that there was a movement of backyard wrestling on Long Island. But really, as a whole, in downstate, there really is no such thing as backyard wrestling. So that's why, for the audience, I would basically label it as from the southern part of the state up into Pennsylvania. So I just had to put it out there because
Yeah, yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn. I had no backyard going up. Basically, my backyard was the street, the pavement, the asphalt, and that's where I was. I wasn't asking my parents for a ring in front of the street. There was going to be get out of here. So it was a tough upbringing, but everybody has got their own story.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. But just to be able to bring it back to Pittsburgh, like where it
Right.
all began for the GBYWN era, anyway. Like we had the biggest shows for the first couple of years, and like outside of like the couple in Cooperstown and Albany, it was
Yep.
it really was Pittsburgh, and to be able to like bring that back, bring the community back here. We're a great central location for everybody, like 8 hours from Chicago, 8 hours from New York. Anybody else, if you're further away than that, you could take a flight, but like we are dead set in the middle of what the GBYWN was. So we were able to bring together a pretty nice roster of people.
It's so fascinating that you talked about the Midwest, and even now in kind of this revival. I don't know what you call it at this point, but it seems like there is a movement. It's an all wrestling matters movement. It seems to have taken, I think, the backyard circuit by storm. We've had all these different shows I talked about earlier in the beginning, but it's always seemed to me, from what I was listening to you on some different podcasts recently, and it kind of made sense now that I think about it. The Midwest always seems to be at the center of the backyard wrestling circuit. Is that because of proximity? Is that because of people and the space that they have? Because even today, if you look at our movement here on Sportswire with the All Wrestling Matters movement, it's states like Ohio, it's states like Michigan, it's states like Wisconsin, states like Iowa, states like Pennsylvania also. In those states, they seem to basically be powering this movement. Illinois has joined in as well recently. And I was just wondering, why is that? Is it just because of the proximity, or just the Midwest, even to this day, seems like it powers the majority of this movement in the backyard?
So I think for me, it's just more or less there's more land. Like you could find a lot more farm. Like one of our wrestling venues, like in Ohio, was literally inside of a barn. It was a fantastic location, but it's just all the land that you could possibly ever need. Where else, the further you get northeast, or maybe even like down into Florida is too far away for us to get to. And I didn't ever hear anything going on in like Georgia or South Carolina or any of that. I think it's
Yeah,
just too
even to
hot.
this day, it's very rare you see anything. In Georgia, there's one company. It's sort of a vestige from Copper Dragon, who does the ratings. He's kind of our Dave Meltzer. Rad knows him very well, and he was a part of the GBYWN with GWC Intensity. And there's an kind of an offspring of him and his company that's in Georgia, but they really, to be honest, they really haven't quite had the success so far. But really, Georgia, South Carolina, it's very little. Florida, there's one company in a trampoline, and it's most of the serious yarders don't really think much of it. It's actually a guy who runs the Backyard Wrestling Nexus. I like him. He's been on the platform a few times, but he's not considered really a serious yarder to the ones that come on here heavily. So even to this
Right.
day, Florida's not much of a player.
Well, for our era, Florida was it was like three different cities and three
Okay.
different smaller groups that all ended up realizing that they can't really uh they couldn't get other people to come to their shows because it was so far away from what we were all doing. So all
Hmm.
three of them just kind of banded together and created one giant Florida Fed that was able to finally entice us to go down there and stuff. But I mean, Florida was great talent back in our day, and I mean, if I'm being honest, our whole thing was nothing but great talent, like all across the country. Everywhere we had people coming from was just a new guy would show up one day and you're like, dang, he's already better than me. Like it just consistently all the time. It was such a fun time to be part of the whole thing. But yeah, I
No
mean, I
question
think the
about that.
Midwest was definitely very accessible for a lot of people, and most of the best backyard wrestlers ever, or at least the best feds, tend to come from Pennsylvania for some reason or another, and I don't can't explain
Even
why,
now
but
to
like
this day, we just had on Aaron Blaze, who's one of the premier yarders, and he's from Pennsylvania. He's one of the traveling guys, and he's a Pennsylvania guy. And Pennsylvania, even now, still carries a lot of weight in the backyard circuit. A lot of the guys that were at the end of kind of your GBYWN have kind of morphed into either being indie guys or undergrounders, and they've had definitely some success, a fair amount of success, and they're also PA guys. So even to this day, in the new movement, you might want to call it, there's still a lot of Pennsylvania representation.
That's great to see. I love that representing the home state because, like, I mean, if you just, I don't know how familiar a lot of your audience might be with some of these names, but like the people that came out of Pennsylvania were like Anarchy Andy and Arbo and Airborne Extreme and Loco and Freak Boy and Tommy Flambeau and Rex and like Mike Damage and Sick Rick and Sean Phoenix and Hack Edgman. Like it just literally the list is insane. The amount of people that came from. I mean, now Pennsylvania is a big state, so we have that
Sure.
going for us. But it's just all over. Like every hour and a half, there was across the state. There's another fed of somebody that came up. Tony
Yep.
Deppen, former Ring of Honor television
I
champion, who
definitely
will
heard of the
be on
name.
the
Sure.
show. Straight out of PA. His brother Johnny. Just it's just the list goes on forever. It's crazy how many great backyard wrestlers specifically came from Pennsylvania.
Well, we're very excited about that. And before we get into the show itself, if you'd like to follow Golden Triangle Media and, of course, Sick Rick, there's a bunch of links here. Please follow them on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, X, and keep up to date with them. We've got huge, shows coming up for sure when it comes to it's a 2-day show. We got September 28th and 29th. Please go out there and support the gang. We're very excited about it. It's an honor to have him here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally where all wrestling matters. I'm going to get to your match in a few minutes, but with something like this, I mean, I always ask this question to people who come on here for the first time. What are your goals with an event like this? What are some of the goals you have?
So I think first and foremost, it's getting the band back together. I want to be with all my friends, whether it be one last time or at least one more time. I want to be with all my friends, and these are people that I never got to say goodbye to, and people that they never got to say goodbye to. People that they love, like it's just a group of brothers that I want to be able to hang out again for at least 2 more days. Um, so that's very important to me. But on top of that, I've seen the way that backyard wrestling is now accepted on Facebook, and not just Facebook, but YouTube and all the social media platforms. Backyard wrestling is very, very accepted these days, and it wasn't when we were doing it. A lot of our guys had to hide. You weren't allowed to post stuff on social media in fear of indie promoters finding it and
Yeah,
blackballing
it's
you
been a
and not
big
allowing you to work.
debate on this platform. I just had on one guy, him and his brother. They were actually from Pennsylvania. It was Devin Adams and JJ Stevens, who JJ Stevens holds a victory over Tarzan Duran, who's been kind of in and around the circuit. He's been here on Sportswire. He's done some work in GTS, wrestled Jacob Fatu, Mr. Anderson. He wrestled about a month ago, and he's basically scrubbed like all of his backyard stuff. Doesn't even acknowledge it. He's basically on his way to training. Another guy I had on, JB Havoc, was doing backyard underground stuff and is basically, I'm going indie, I'm going pro, and he scrubbed all his stuff. So even today, there's still some guys are just in fear of being, yarders. They kind of disassociate themselves with it. So it's still that kind of debate that's been on this platform. And I've actually said actually quite a bit about it because I am very proud to support the Yarders, and I'm very proud, and I wave the flag, and I really have no problem with doing that. But some guys obviously that are, want to make that switch. Others, it doesn't bother them, but that's still a topic for sure.
Yeah, and so just like, and to be fair, like the stuff that you're talking about is a little more people that are now trying to make it, right? And they're like they
Yeah.
want to go be independent wrestlers. But a
Yep.
lot of our guys already were, and
Mhm.
like they wanted to continue to get their bookings and stuff. But now,
Sure.
dude, we're all in our 30s, some of us 40s. Eric Engel in the chat, who's Airborne
Yes,
Extreme, he's
I'm
like
gonna get to the
59.
chat for sure. Yeah.
Um, so none of us really care anymore about making it. Like they're not going to not get booked because they worked on a show in Pittsburgh. And
Sure.
honestly, at the end of the day, this show isn't really a backyard show. Like it is in spirit and it is in the community, but like it's an independent venue with a real ring and a sound system, and like it is 100% not a backyard show, at least not
Oh, I
by
would imagine. Also, I would
right.
also have to think, considering the time of year that you're having it, I don't even know if it'd be backyard weather. So, I mean, I'm sure that those are things to
You'd be
think.
surprised some of the stuff that we've been through, man. The
Actually, you know what? No, I wouldn't be in one sense because I mean there are some companies to this day that have come on here. Some it's October, they close up. Others they go on and continue in 20 degrees. So I mean it depends, I guess, where you are.
we had a show in Ohio one time at the barn location where
Okay.
it was 4 degrees with a negative 17-degree wind chill, and we were outside all weekend. Like we just didn't. It was in a barn in the middle of a field. Like there was nowhere to go, so we just all dealt with it, and we would take turns like getting in the car for 10, 15 minutes at a time, and then getting out, let someone else get warm. But like it was
Oh, wow.
dangerous. Yeah, it was crazy though because we needed to be there. It was just what we needed to do at the time.
Well, that's certainly very fascinating. That's definitely, I would say, wow. Okay, well, that's why I'm excited about this event. Thankfully, it's not going to be 4 degrees and a negative 17 wind chill coming up next weekend. I think we'll get 70s, which is very comfortable. But I mean, so let's talk about your own match. So you've got a huge match coming up here, and I'll put it up on the YouTube screen, kind of where we are in this, and set the tables for us and why you are facing off with Marcus Senofonte.
Oh man, Marcus, me and him, we go back all the way to the beginning of this journey for me. And Marcus was one of the backyard wrestling link guys. He was maybe not quite as over during the backyard wrestling link as he eventually became in the GBYWN era. Think of him not necessarily on the same level, but like a Sean Jovi, where he wasn't necessarily doing too much before, and then whenever the new era starts, he kind of takes his place among the upper echelon, you know?
Sure.
So whenever that happened for him, this man's ego went insane. Like everything had to be his way. All his friends needed to be booked in the way that he saw fit. If he blackballed your show, no one was going. So these were things that like he was part of a clique called the Big League, and it was maybe
Hmm.
10 or 15 people that might have been above you in terms of skill, but they thought they were above you as people. And this is something
Mm.
that me and my group of friends just didn't want anything to do with, right? So we started a group, a faction called the Awakening, and pretty much the
Mm.
entire goal of this faction was to take out Marcus Centofonte and stop him from pulling all this stuff he's been pulling for so long. Like finally put an end to Marcus Centofonte. And unfortunately for us, him and his boys hit the 1, 2, 3 on us, took our crew out, and we didn't get the job done. So like we were
Mm.
looked at as the bad guys. People thought that we were the ones that were in the wrong the whole time because we had a target. But just because you have a target doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong. You just know what you're doing, right? Like you know what you want to accomplish. And we wanted to destroy this ego from our community. And when that didn't happen, I was kind of lost. Like I didn't know what the next move was supposed to be. So I kind of wandered around the backyard circuit for a little bit. And I ended up in like a triple threat match with him down the road where he beat me again. He pinned me 1, 2, 3, moved on. And after the match was over, he extended his hand to me and I shook it. And that's something that has haunted me for 12 years.
So
I
shaking his hand, it haunted you. Why?
should not have shook that man's hand because that was giving him what he wanted. It was always about him getting what he wanted. Every time it was always what he
So if
wanted.
you've let this bother you then for 12 years, that's a long time to have this simmering. I mean, boy, you must have thought that that would have never took place, that you and him would be in a ring coming up next weekend, huh?
So that's the thing. It didn't bother me forever. It was about, I would say about 2 or 3 years ago, I let it all go. It was just,
Okay.
I'm a new person now. I moved
Mm-hmm.
on. I'm here to just be one with the community. I just want to be friends with my friends. I want everybody to be happy. And then this promo. This is what he drops whenever he finds out that I'm hosting a reunion show.
Right now, they're playing all the hits for famous internet clout, even though they didn't do none of it. You know what I got to do, Sid Blade, to wait for NYE or New Era footage to
What's
pop
that?
off?
What's
I
that?
just got to wait 3 or 4 months. It happens 6 times a year. Rick, you're playing with fire. I used to stand in front of all these people, this community of my brothers. I was the king amongst men, and I would say, these are my people. Where were my people when I needed them the most? Rick, they'll abandon you. Don't make me remember who the fuck I am.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, the whole thing leading up to this was brotherhood, and it was all of us excited to get back together and to just be friends again, you know? And then he has to take it here. It's always this with him. It's always got to be, I am better than you, and here is why. And even after he drops this promo, it took a lot of people, a lot of convincing to even make me think about getting in the ring again. I was only there to be the pencil. I just wanted to book the matches, make sure everybody could have a great time. I want to book the hotel rooms. I want to make sure I know where everybody's staying. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to put this together for everybody. And he just couldn't have that. And after a lot of really close people to me told me a lot of things that I really needed to hear, I realized that the only person that can shut him up is me. There's nobody else. It can only be me. And if it's not me, then he gets to talk forever. He could talk for the whole rest of his life. The next 40, 50, 60 years, he could keep on yapping. But if I can finally be the one to shut him up and do our community the service, then I have to take the opportunity. I have to try.
Let me ask you, though, this question. What's the preparation like for you going into a match like this? You haven't been in the ring for such a long time, so I'd be curious for the audience. And what's the preparation like?
So, whenever the idea for this show first kicked off, I was in the worst shape of my life. I was only doing video editing and podcasting. I was not going outside. My skin had not seen sun in 2 years. Like, I was just not doing it. I was not doing anything healthy for myself. And then the idea of this show changed what I was doing about myself. First day out, I couldn't walk a mile, and I went to work the next day, and I hobbled around everywhere the entire time. And just as recently as last week, I did 11 miles and 2 weight training workouts in the same day. Like,
Good.
I've just been building and building and building. And luckily for me, I have multiple friends who are trained professional wrestlers who were able to spar with me and help me get into the vibes a little bit and make sure I still know what I'm doing. We even made a commercial for one of our friends where I was able to get back in the ring and put a mask on and just see what it feels like to go through the motions again. And I mean, I feel really good about it. I think the opportunity is there for me to have one of the better matches that I've ever had.
Well, we're very excited about that, and we're putting some of the stuff on the screen to get basically kind of a synopsis of where we are. We'll definitely get to some of the chat. We'll let everybody say hello to you and talk in a little bit. And if you are here, please hit the sub button for our friends at Golden Triangle Media. We'd like to certainly make sure a lot more people get a chance to see what they have to offer. Also, I am on my road to 1,000 subscribers. I feel like it's been a long, painful road these past several days with my voice. So if you'd like to hit the sub button for me and you are here, I would appreciate that. We are here with, of course, the legendary Sick Rick, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be here. And he was a man, certainly a key cog in the GBYWN and also the BYWN link. We're getting ready for that huge link reunion show. And I mean, tell us what we're seeing here now.
So that area is where our super shows used to be held.
Wow.
Right behind the field, behind my old apartments. It's
Wow.
now somebody's house that they shaved out into a backyard, and we chose to ask forgiveness instead of permission and just kind of went over there and hoped for the best, and we got in and out without anybody stopping us. So that was
wow. That's pretty cool. Was that
Yeah.
weird going back to where you grew up? Was that a little weird at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because it looks so different. But as soon as you break that tree line and you're in the field, you're like, oh, like there's so many memories immediately, nothing but memories everywhere.
Wow.
And that was the weirdest part about it, because I went over here prepared to cut this promo, and I ended up reminiscing for a half an hour with my friend who was on camera. Was just like, dude, right over there is where we did that, and that's where like our entranceway used to be, and isn't this like just so cool to look at? And it's like the earth almost reclaimed it outside of like a couple little patches that are still extremely recognizable, which, I mean, it was really cool to be over there, man. It was it's not something that I think that I'll ever need to do again, but I'm glad I got to do it one more time. Just to
Does
check
it
out
make
and see
it
what
now
looks like.
feel more special going into next weekend because you got a chance to go out and do this and be where you were? Because a lot of people don't get that opportunity. You know, a lot of people, they don't get that opportunity to go where it all started or where they grew up. And I mean, that's got to be a pretty cool feeling that you still were able to do this and do a promo the way you did here, leading into what we're going to see next weekend.
Yeah. I mean, just the ability to go over there was something that I'm very happy that I got to do, especially because like we weren't exactly sure the setting we were gonna do, and it was kind of on the fly last minute. Like, hey, you want to go see if we can go get in there? And whenever we were able to get back there and we started looking around and shooting and see what it was gonna look like honestly, I was never much of a promo back in the day. I was more of the worker guy. I was most of the time the muscle of whatever group I was in, or like I was just there to fight and work Japanese style, you know.
Okay.
But this time with this promo specifically, it's the best on-camera talking work that I've ever done.
Wow.
And I needed it to be, because like this is a very important match to me, and this is essentially just me accepting the match and telling Marcus why I'm accepting the match, and it's because I need to knock that ego off of him. Like, he's a great person deep down inside. He really has done so much for our community. NYE is irreplaceable, but he will tell you that to your face over and over and over again. And it's like, dude, we know. Like, just one of the lines I said in this promo is that he would be a Mount Rushmore guy if he would allow himself to believe that there were 3 other people on his level, because he can't do it. Like, it's only him, and it's his big, nasty, gross, stupid idiot head, always in the business of everybody else. So,
but isn't that what wrestling's about? Where wrestling, everybody, it's a dog eat dog world. Everybody goes in it for themselves. Isn't that what it's supposed to be in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. It is supposed to be that. And I guess one of the things that frustrates me so much is that I was always the one getting eaten. I was always on the undercard of it, you know? Like, whenever he hit his move on me and that ref's hand hit 3, it was always me looking up at the lights. So maybe that's a me thing. I don't know. But if it is a me thing, it's still something that I need to fix.
So let me ask you then this question. Next weekend, you beat him. I mean, that's got to be something you're going to remember till the end of time, because this is it, right? This is the last time you and him are going to be in a ring, I would imagine. And if you're able to get bragging rights here, I mean, that's going to be something you're going to think about 30 years from now in your rocking chair somewhere, when you may be doing another one of your podcast ventures, and maybe you're cutting another new rap single that you're going to put out there and hit, I don't know, 100,000 plus views on Spotify and other places. And that's what you're going to have bragging rights for. And you're going to remember that. And that's what you're going to basically hold dear to you. Is that basically why, and this is so important to you to win coming up here next weekend?
Yeah. 10 years ago, I would have said yes. 10 years ago, that was my reason why. And this time, I don't think it's about that. This time,
why not?
This time, I think it's about, I'm trying to save him. I'm trying to save our community from him. If I can beat him, then he no longer has the bragging rights, and he just has to go back to being one of the boys. He could just be a friend of ours again. He doesn't have to hold himself on this pedestal where he has to be the god of backyard wrestling. He could just be one of us and just be a friend and hang out and enjoy.
But if he beats you, wouldn't he be one of those gods then?
Yes, absolutely, yes. And
especially on a show like this, with the meaning of it, the historical impact, and just the amount of publicity it's been getting. I mean, there's no question that he wins here. He would be a god.
Yeah, I mean, he needs it just as bad as I do, and his reasons are all the opposite.
And a god slays a king usually, right?
Yeah. I mean, most times. I think if the god underestimates anybody, then at the end of the day, if stuff comes down to stuff, he's going to have a hard time.
He's going to have a hard time. Well, I tell you what, we're going to find out here. As a matter of fact, I've actually got the poster here from what you're going to see here. And I want to obviously make sure everybody here supports our friends at Golden Triangle Media here with the legendary Sick Rick. And as a matter of fact, I got it right here because you can see it there. 15 years later, Rick versus Centofonte. You got a whole list of great stuff here. It's going to be the BYW community and Golden Triangle Media presents the day one fights. It's 15 years later at 880 Fifth Avenue, New Kensington, Pennsylvania. It's not dead yet. Boy, they are definitely not dead yet. You got a slew of great shows there. You got some guy Hazard there. Rad Hazard. I think I heard of him. You got Outcast and Combat King.
Red Hazard.
Yeah. Pennsylvania versus the world. You got tag team championships on the line. You got a whole list. I mean, this is definitely where you're going to get a chance to see some of the very best that ever stepped foot in the GBYW and that BYW link. It's going to be next weekend, September 28th to 29th. Everybody might be thinking about here in New York City baseball season and the Major League Baseball pennant races, NFL. Forget about all of it because we have got a show that's going to be like no other. It is going to be a super show for the ages, and I can assure you, all of these other shows that are upcoming, and they're going to have their show, and they're going to say it's the first, the greatest. It wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the GBYW and the BYW link. We are so grateful and honored to be here with the legendary Sick Rick. He was the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And he'll definitely tell it to you, and he'll prove it. Coming up next weekend against Marcus Centofonte. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice, figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters. Let me get to the chat, and after that, I want to present to you something in recognition of you being here and thanking you for all that you've done for us here in the sport, because as in the words of Hillbilly Tilly, who in his own right was around during those days in the GBYW and always says it best, true yarders do it for the love of this sport by putting their blood, sweat, and tears out there, and there's no question that everybody's going to be wrestling next weekend. Everybody that's going to be a part of this and everybody that's been a part of the GBYWN and the BYW link have been a part of that. We cannot thank Rick enough for being here with us on Sportswire Radio. He is one of the reasons why we are here. He's one of the reasons why we're in prime time, the brightest lights, the biggest stage, and he helped us build All Wrestling Matters to be a movement. Sean Jovi, he's definitely been hyped. He's been telling me for days how hyped he was, and thank you, Sean. Yes, Sean was motivating me to get in touch with you, and I was still going to always get in touch with you, but I have all these backyarders and Mickey Mouse Club members that come on this platform from time and time again. So, just I'm glad we got you here now where it counts right before the show, because I could have had you 3 weeks ago, but I don't think it would have as much meaning. So I'd rather have you now than when I would have had you 2 weeks ago. But that's okay. We'll come back to that. But yes, we want to say hello to Zilla. Zilla is our resident chatter. She is definitely everywhere. She goes, I was in the BTW chat, which was for the Backyard Trampoline Wrestling Fed in Roseburg, Oregon, earlier before we were on the air, and Zilla was there. She was watching the show with me and everybody else, and Sean Jovi did like my speech still. Yes, but it wasn't that oomph. I didn't have that bass line because, unfortunately, listen, I really wanted to give you that oomph. I wanted to give you that bass, but unfortunately, I can't right now. But my voice is okay,
man. It was fantastic.
I haven't done something like non-bass with my voice in like 3 years like that. That just tells you really how much I've been doing this. But what is Golden Triangle Media? Well, Golden Triangle Media is basically a platform that you've put some of your footage out there, your old BYW footage. You've done some podcasting with it as well, and it's also sponsoring next weekend show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just me and my closest friends that still live in Pittsburgh, all the same guys that came up with me when we were doing backyard wrestling. We all have our own talents, right? So I'm the video guy. My friend Dominic is the production guy. We have our friend Josh, who is a comedian and also loves cameras and stuff like that. We have our friend JP, who just kind of shows up and hangs out with us, which we still love. So it's still the same group of guys, just doing different things, just still finding a way to express ourselves through the visual media,
Love it. Love that stuff. Definitely. That wasn't my upbringing. It was Brooklyn. It was, it was what it was. I tell people that all the time, but that's okay. We're here now in prime time, the brightest lights, the biggest stage. Who is coming on after Sick Rick? Nobody tonight, because Sick Rick is here, and I don't have much of a voice, Zilla. So, Zilla, I'll be here twice tomorrow, though, so I'll make up for it. But Sick Rick's going to be here for a while, so I can't be a robot, unfortunately. Then I really won't have a voice. Then you won't get any more shows after that. We want to make sure that I can at least breathe a little bit once in a while, right? But that's okay. Thank you, Zilla, as always. I know that guy. It's the kid with the hot bar. So tell us who Eric Engel is for the audience.
Eric Engel is Airborne Extreme, backyard wrestling legend. He started backyard wrestling in like 1954 or something like that. He's been around for a long time.
I thought we had some guys that came on this platform recently were that old, but yet Eric's older. Then all right, fair enough.
No, definitely the oldest backyard wrestler ever. Invented the flying elbow drop. Hell of a dude. Juggalo as well. Pennsylvania guy also. Like he's one of the boys, man. Love me some Eric Engel.
What made you in becoming a juggalo that got you into backyard wrestling? I thought that was so fascinating that you've talked about being a juggalo, and how did that translate into you being a yarder? I mean, I see the similarities. I definitely see basically the dedication, the movement, the loyalty. But how did that all transition?
It didn't necessarily have like a bridge, so to speak, but it
Okay.
was a friend of mine who I was friends with because of the ICP scene.
Okay.
Um, is the one that introduced me to the backyard wrestling scene local to Pittsburgh. So being a juggalo, hanging out with him, going to the concerts, doing all that stuff eventually led me to the group of people that I would end up wrestling with. So only later do I find out that like the Insane Clown Posse were also professional wrestlers and
Yeah,
they still wrestle.
WCW,
Yeah.
WWF at the time. I mean, they did
Yep.
a lot actually. They were pretty much ahead of their time. I mean, they really were a staple for a while in the Attitude Era. WCW, they teamed up with Vampiro. I mean, they were a big thing, no question about it.
Yeah, now they own their own company, JCW, and it's not as big as it used to be, but
I
they still
think
do shows and they do
Kevin Nash and
concerts.
Scott Hall appeared there once upon a time years ago. Some really
Yeah.
heavy
Mhm.
hitters appeared there.
Yeah, and it like I don't know what it is, man. It's just always been a fun thing for me, and a lot of people used to take it extremely seriously. Like I do have a tattoo. It's not a Hatchet Man tattoo, but it is something that represents that part of my life. And a lot of people take it extremely seriously, and
Mhm.
like it is borderline a gang to some people. But to me, it's just always been something I really enjoyed, and I liked being with my friends and hanging out and doing common interest stuff. So like it just worked out.
Listen, nothing wrong with that. Trust me, nothing wrong with that. And we're so happy that you had that, and that's why we're here on Sportswire Ready with you. Sean Jovi, America's resident rock star, wants to say, was the JS4 where the temperature was bad? I remember it being cold as fill in the blanks. We're a family station, so I don't really curse. So sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I've been trying to keep that too. I don't know if I have let any slip, but I've
No,
tried
you're
to
okay.
not to.
I don't do it because we have an internet radio station and I am kind of known out there at this point, so I don't do it. But you can say what you want. I try to oblige by a certain standard, but that's okay.
I've been doing my best to keep up with you on that, but like,
Appreciate that.
so
Thank
here
you
we
very
go.
much. Very kind of you.
But yeah, that was absolutely the one that it was freezing cold. That was the one where Sean Jovi got hit in the head with the flying paint can and such. Like it was so cold. And yeah, I'm surprised the can didn't evaporate the second it hit his head. Like it had to be frozen. It was crazy, man.
Well,
The whole weekend.
I wish the blister on my foot would finally evaporate, but maybe tomorrow it will. But that's
I
okay.
just
We'll
got
move
one
on.
on my hand today from I'm a chef, so
Oh
I'm
God,
trying to
yeah.
learn.
I've had a few of those. I used to bowl actually, so I know how
Oh,
painful that was.
same. Yeah, I bowled a 300 back in 2008 or something
Oh
like that.
wow, okay,
And
yeah. My
yeah.
brother was in the 10th frame. Actually, as a matter of fact, I was actually told I could have been a professional bowler, but to ask my parents growing up in Brooklyn to get bowling lessons, they were like, "Thank you very much. You can go get a job now." And that was pretty much
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that
I've
was
thrown 10 straight a couple times, and then the 11th and 12th are always the tricky
yeah.
one. But
That's
I
yeah.
got that 12th one time.
Yep. That's definitely my brother has done that. I want to say hello to James Taylor, also a fellow longtime yarder who just put up his first match on a trampoline on his YouTube page. James is also the owner of the Promo Wrestling Federation, which we're on YouTube. Well, he used to be the owner. I'm the owner of it now, but he was my predecessor. He is the owner of ROEW in Michigan. They just recently surpassed 1,000 subscribers and on YouTube, and they're going to be here in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame Friday night in your chair, 9 o'clock Eastern time. And he also says hello to you. He says hello to Mr. Rick. I'm sure that you and James may have crossed paths, or James watched you. He's got 130,000 followers, though. He's big on TikTok. He's big on YouTube.
Oh,
Yep,
wow.
he's really. Yep, he's basically the guy. If you anything Stone Cold, he knows it, and he gets like a million views on it. So, but yes, we say hello to him. And speaking of Pennsylvania, a good buddy of mine, Chase Wakefield. Chase has been around the block for a while. He's done some stuff in the backyard, the underground, DBW, VTW, and he knows everybody out there. He's coming back on Sports by Radio. As a matter of fact, right before my birthday coming. My birthday is in 20 days. He'll be here right before it. You guys were my childhood, and you all got me into BYW. And I just want to say thank you, Sick Rick, for doing what you've done.
Man, that's crazy for me to hear because that was my childhood. Like that was me looking back to whenever I was a kid and I was somebody else's
Well, he
childhood and
started
that was
probably
what
right
you wanted.
after you ended, which would make
Uh,
sense because he started his journey in the yard to where he is right when you guys were ending. So that would make a lot of sense.
and it was I mean, I definitely played a role, but we all played a role, every single one of us. I would say that there's 150 to 200 like people in the community that I would consider part of us, like a brother.
Wow.
And borderline every single one of those 150 people did something that mattered that got us to where we are today. Like
Wow.
even if they just showed up for a weekend, inspired somebody to do a spot that made its way all the way down the line, like it's and we all know each other too. Like it's really cool, man. It's
That's
just
cool. I
proud
think
for
that's
our
the best
community
part.
over
To
there.
me, I say it all the time. It's not about wins and losses. It's about those friendships. It's about working together, building a community. And community is power, ladies and gentlemen. Community is power, and together we win. But speaking of people that have been here quite a bit in the past, his name is Rad Dad Radley Belmont, but AKA next weekend, Rad Hazard. And he would like to say, love me some Sick Rick. Not only a valuable historian, but a damn fine wrestler, too. To the fact that I even get Rad Dad in a chat is almost, this has to be important for you to be here, because Rad usually doesn't comment in the chat. So this has to have some meaning. So obviously we're very honored to see Mr. Rad Hazard here, I should say. But he does have some rather kind words for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rad and I go back a long way. I had a really fun singles match with him back in the day. I had a fun multi-man match against him. Just something that Rad has that I also share with him is just our passion and our fandom and how much we love the community. So whenever I was going through the people that I wanted to come to this show and just figuring out who would possibly come, without even asking, I knew that I could write Rad's name down as confirmed. I knew that if I said, I'm having this reunion show, it's in Pittsburgh, he would find a way to get here. And just, I mean, what else can you say about Rad Hazard that he didn't say on his show? Like, he
No,
loves
for
us,
sure. And I say it all
know?
the time. I mean, this man wrestled the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, to me, that's just, I mean, what an accomplishment. I know he's had some other bangers, other great matches out there, but to be in the ring and have a competitive match with the Rock and Roll Express, I mean, that speaks volumes, volumes. It shows the character that this man has and his talent. And it's just always an honor just to even see Rad Dad here on Sportswire. And we put it up here very briefly. We'll come back to it. But that old GBYWN news that obviously Mr. Rad Dad used to host all those famous years ago. I know you guys had some fun having a parody of it, but I kind of had a few words to say about it, because I do think that on this platform, in the new movement, that there is, I think, a lot more emotional, I think, impact in some ways. But we got plenty of more comments. It's not about me. It's about you, Mr. Sick Rick, because you are the best there is, the best there was, and the best there will be. And nobody's here for me. They're here for you. Yes, thank you, Zilla, for tuning in. Let me get to Sean Jovi. Rick and I didn't always see eye to eye, but one thing I always respected Rick for is being such a big influencer on the scene. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I think let's start with the first part, us not always seeing eye to eye. I think a part of that had to do with my ego. I think that the standard that I was holding myself to and the people around me wasn't necessary because we were just doing backyard wrestling, but I took it extremely seriously.
Well, some guys today do that. There are guys today that they're on the trampoline, and some guys get mad because they're trampoliners. Other guys feel that they're not really honing their craft, and that debate's still raging today. There's this new thing, the BYW Hub rankings, and there's some guys that are kind of the borderline yard going indie or indie trained, and they look at it like, well, why is this guy ranked? He's on a trampoline. This one's not in the ring. I mean, it's still going on today. I mean, it's no different.
So, I mean, there's definitely some place for competition because competition's always going to bring out the best. And if there was no competition in backyard wrestling, then the media that's getting putting out would still be like choke slams and like Stone Cold Stunners. That would be what you see on YouTube.
Sure.
And because these people all want to be known as the best, they're gonna, fight for those spots. And I think that in general, the competition is a great thing. But I think that maybe whenever you start excluding people a little bit too much just because they don't necessarily live up to what you want to be going on your show, I think that that's unnecessary. I think that you should allow everybody an opportunity to be one of the boys. And like if somebody, and like, don't get me wrong, we absolutely allowed Jovi the opportunity to be one of the
Well,
boys.
he's very been vocal about the fact that he and the GBYWN, him and Remy Ravage, they were kind of like the bottom feeders in a way. We've had a few people come on this platform without naming names that were kind of in a way like this today, but Mr. Jovi obviously explained years ago he was kind of like that in a sense. He was kind of almost like a laughing stock. He was almost kind of not the cool kid. They were almost kind of like the misfits. Him and Remy Ravage is an example. And I don't know enough to comment on that, but that's what he's told us here on this platform, and he's been very vocal about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, just from my perspective, right? Because that's the only thing I can give. I never looked at them as a group, and I also never looked at a group of people as the bottom feeders. It was more that I looked at like the top 6 or 7 guys as the people that I needed to make sure that I booked well and that I
Gotcha.
put them in the best possible opportunity to have a great match so I can show off for my show, you know? So, like, I mean, just running down the list, there was like the Devin Bliss, Chris Castle, Beast Snows, Hack Edgerman, Sean Phoenix, myself because I was booking, Twisted Outcast, and a couple other people, like people that I made sure to go above and beyond for. And maybe everybody else kind of got left behind a little bit because that's where my focus was, at least in terms of booking, you know. But in terms of friendship, like how I actually treated people and stuff like that, for the most part, I would say I was pretty fair. But I mean, there was a time where I was a bit of a bully to 2 very specific people, and one of them was Sean Jovi. And but I gave him his get back that same weekend. Like, I put him right back over. I gave him a segment where I had him lariat me and get the pop from the crowd, and everybody cheered for him. You know, like, I understood what I was doing was going a little too far, so I was like, all right, let's dial this back a bit, give him a moment, let's get him over. You know, and the other one was this kid by the name of Mike Wonder, who came up in the Pittsburgh scene right behind us. So as we were checking out, he was trying to check in, and he was trying to be one of us. And I took liberties with him when we were training, and I kind of beat him up a little bit. And like, it was trying to introduce him to the scene, but at the same time, I was 2 of him, man. Like, I had no reason to be throwing him around like that. And a couple years ago, I apologized to him for it. I was like, bro, I'm sorry about all that. And he's like, dude, I loved every second. Like, I didn't even realize you were being ill-willed towards me. Like, you prepared me for what was going to happen whenever I did travel. And that might be the case. That's not necessarily what I was doing. I was being a bully. But, you know, all things equal, he's fine with it. I apologize. And now me and Mike Wonder are good friends. And I hope that, like, if me and Sean Jovi ever cross paths again, him and I would also be friends.
Oh, I think he would definitely be friends with you. All he's done to me off the air is praise you, and he was, I mean, so excited about you coming here. So I think that, as far as, at least from my conversation with Mr. Jovi, and I've known Mr. Jovi now for a couple of years, I would have no doubt that that would be the case. And he wanted to actually be there next weekend, but he's obviously defending a championship in the promotion he works for. Understandable. Are you surprised, or are you not surprised, maybe, if it's a better way to phrase it, that Sean Jovi's kind of now in this new era, he's become like a leader. He's become a guy, like a calming voice of reason. He's become really a guy that everybody from every Fed that comes on here, doesn't matter who they are, TBW, it doesn't matter if they're IMF, WCE, his own promotion, NEW, ROEW, XCW, all these places, DKW, ALW, all these different places. They may have opinions with each other, and they're almost like assholes. There's one wrestler that's controversial, always comes on here, but when Sean Jovi's name comes up, everybody's got nothing but good things to say about him. Are you surprised, or maybe not in some of those respects, that he's become kind of this guy that's a unifier and a calming voice of reason?
I'm absolutely baffled. I never in a million years would I expect that, you know, like, especially from where we were then to where we are now. He tried to be a super show host. He did one, there's wrestling in Wisconsin or something like that back in the 2009-10 range or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people showed up. It was like maybe his closest friends drove up from Indiana or something like that. And
Nice W, yep.
Yeah, outside of that, it wasn't that big of a thing. So it's like to see him go from the guy that couldn't get people to come to his show to now being the guy that like now I definitely understand everybody saying that he's nice and that they respect what he has to say, because my entire history of knowing Sean or people that know him have just had nothing but nice things
I
to
mean,
say
he
about him. He's just a
legitimately is
nice
like
person.
everybody. I mean, there are promotions and feds that they all have problems with each other. They don't have maybe the same way about doing things. But when his name comes up, I like Jovi. I respect him. Yeah, Sean Jovi, his own promotion's kind of gone through some things. They're on the way back. But Sean Jovi's name, almost universally, everybody, I'm on every night. I've done about 180 shows in about 120 something days. Sean Jovi's name comes up. Yeah, I like him. Jovi, yeah, Jovi's got it going on. He's America's cat dad. He's America's vlogger. I mean, they love him. Their own feds or the feds that he works for, they'd have opinions with. But him, nobody, as I've found, has ever had a bad thing to say about him.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, he was never anything but nice. Now, I will say that like I think his problem was that like instead of getting good, he got mad. Like whenever he wasn't very good, whenever he first started, if people would tell him he sucked, people told me I sucked, and I did. I was hot trash in 2007 and 2008. But after people telling you suck for so long, your only two things you could do are like you complain about it or like leave the scene, or you could get better. And those are like the two options. And I think Jovi didn't want to leave the scene, and also maybe didn't necessarily take the steps that he could have or should have taken to get better, instead of like complaining that we were saying that he wasn't so good.
Sure.
But also at the same time, like I openly admit, I definitely pushed some buttons for sure.
Well, you know what? It happens. Obviously, we live and learn, and he's definitely come a long way, and he's made a great comeback. It's been a great story these past 14 or 15 months with Jovi, and it's admirable. I'm glad he made it on this platform. His story speaks volumes, and all yarders, past, present, and future, can learn from. And I could not agree more with that. Let me get to and I apologize on that. While most of the BYW community back then was worried about coming off as marks, what is that term? Wink and a nod, because they loved a match, fed or a wrestler. Sick Rick was always very open about how much he appreciated and valued BYW history. And I think that that's also a very admirable and commendable thing, because I do think that sometimes yarders or people in their own fed kind of stick in this cocoon in their own bubble. But to me, anybody who, if they care about something, has to be well-rounded and versed, and you definitely seem to fit that to a T.
Yeah, man, I would go as far as to say I'm the biggest fan of backyard wrestling ever. Like the computer that's next to me right now has a 12 terabyte hard drive built into it. About 6 terabytes or so of that is backyard wrestling. I love my people. I love the stuff that we did. I see what we created and how the independent scene became what we started. The chants, the way that like RKO's out of nowhere was a backyard wrestling thing way before Randy Orton was doing it. Like that was our thing. There's just so many different things that started in the yard and made its way all the way even up to WWE, like a "This is awesome" chant or something like that. Like those kind of things came from what my community of people wanted to do and wanted to see, and it made its way all the way up to the highest rung. And because of that, I love looking at the first rung. I love where it came from and all the people that I got to see do it. And unfortunately for me, a lot of these videos are in like 11p, like like you can't see.
Well, James Taylor, who goes back, he was a yarder back in like 98, 99. He just bought a converter to basically transfer his stuff from what it was VHS to now on YouTube. That's what he's doing now, because he wants to show people what he did, and kind of he's been very vocal about what we could learn from back when you were starting and obviously in your heyday, and he was a little bit before you, and I think that that's also very commendable. So I mean, we could certainly imagine that. Let me get to some comments. I got a lot of people who want to tune in, and also please support our friends over at Golden Triangle Media. We're getting ready for that huge show, and boy, it ain't over yet, and it ain't ever going to be over with these guys. Let me tell you something. They are going to be a part of this history, and I got something for him after we get through this comments. Is going to recognize him in history. And you've got the emoji there for, I guess, the dead. Yes, it ain't over yet. But let me get to some more comments. I got a lot of people tuned in. You can talk all what you want to do, Rick, But in 11 days from now, the bell has to ring, and then you got to make it a reality. Everyone knows you can't. Enjoy the anticipation. See you soon. This would sound like a supporter of the man you're wrestling. And if you are a supporter of the man that you're wrestling, Mr. Sickrick, go hit the sub button for me because I'm less than 100 subscribers away from 1,000 on YouTube. But I digress. I am pitching. I have people praying for me right now. I had somebody stop me in my home community and said, I'm praying for you to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you want to help me, that'd be great. But what do you think about this supporter of your opponent, Marcus Sanafane, coming in here on your show and basically disrupting the party and the celebration that you've had of your career and where we go to next weekend?
Man, let me tell you, that's no supporter. That is the man himself.
How can you be so sure, though?
New Era UCW. I know that YouTube account. That is one of the bigger accounts from our community. In fact, if you go check that out, you could see his big head every other video.
I'm sure that would be the case, but I still have to be in the, the process of some deniability. Have to at least say that.
Right.
I'm a notary by day, so I actually do have to live by that. I
got you.
My license.
Yeah, I'm not worried. All he does is talk. He's been talking for 15 years now. I'm used to hearing him talk. This is probably the longest he's ever heard me talk, if he's even still in the chat, because he's known to just tune out.
Yeah, I'm behind in comments. This show is legendary for big chats. So this is a legend. I had a feeling this would be one. My first show yesterday, I got like 6 comments. Today we get a lot. So he's here, I suppose, but I guess maybe we'll see.
I'm not too worried. He looks great, and he started getting in shape at the same time I did. So him and I are both on the same collision course to button heads in this ring. But I'm just confident, man. I have nothing to lose. This kind of stuff doesn't bother me at all. Like, I'm used to it with him.
Okay, well, you know what? It's the main event 15 years later, and we put that poster up there one more time, and I know there's a lot of people in the chat still, so bear with us. And we are here with the legendary Sick Rick. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice, figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters. And, of course, the GBYWN and the BYW link, they help build this platform. Yes, Santafonte is in the chat. Sean Jovi is confirming it, but I'm still going to go with my process of plausibility of denying that. Comatose, my buddy, who was just on BTW's programming and made his own big challenge against a guy that also was at the tail end of the GBYWN and BYW link, RJS. And he's from all the way in the great state of Idaho, wrestling in Oregon. So Comatose is one of our favorites. He's a double champion. And speaking of people that I think you know very well, how about this guy, Doc Holliday? He actually won. I don't know if you know this, but he actually just won a championship of a super show. He won the Riot in the Ring a few months ago, which was done over by our friends in NEW. They're out in Worcester, Massachusetts. Jake Dvorak, that's his company, alongside Justin Abelsane. 2 guys that started their careers kind of at the tail end of yours. And just anything you want to say about Mr. Doc Holliday? He remains to be one of the most elusive people that has not yet come on this platform, just to let you know.
I love Doc Holliday.
Me too. Big fan of his.
He is top of the line hype man. Anything you're ever doing, you want to share it with Doc, because he'll tell you how awesome it is, and he will love you for it. And I love that about Doc. He loves himself. He loves the people around him. He makes moments a lot more epic than they should be. He just gasses everything up, and I fucking love that.
We love Doc Holliday.
We dropped one
there. Okay. You're all right. You're okay. It's okay.
I love Doc Holliday. I tried to get him to come to the show. I think maybe he's still working on it. It'd be great if he does. I know a lot of people really want to see him there. I'm one of them, and there are plenty of others. So, Doc, if you find your way down to Pittsburgh, man, I got a booking for you. I got you, bud.
It's him and Jovi, kind of the 2 links to the GBYWN days that are still going, and they've been going strong. I mean, Doc had a big run in GTS, and I've seen him all over the place. He's everywhere. I mean, I see him in UWF, I see him in TF Crew, I see him in NEW with the Riot in the Ring, as I just mentioned. He's all over the place, and he's a guy that continues to always amaze me and impress, and we love Doc Holliday. And speaking of people I love, from the great state of Iowa, he is the Samoan Dragon, Il Drago, who says the High Chief is tuned in. We appreciate that very much. I look forward to Il Drago's here next Thursday. And time for you. We acknowledge him. He's here. He'll be here next Thursday with a bunch of his brethren in Iowa.
High Chief.
Sean Jovi's home promotion. Well, second home promotion. But point is, time for Sick Rick to bully Centofonte. Is that the case? Or
Absolutely. Yeah. Eric Engel knows exactly what's up. Everyone Extreme, he's going to be in my corner forever. We're both named Eric. We're both bald. We're both juggalos. We ride for each other.
Well, I want to put it out there. Anybody from the days of the GBYWN is welcome anytime on Sportswire. I like to put it out there. We are all Wrestling Matters. So anybody from the GBYWN, from the BYW link, you are welcome anytime. Anybody is welcome here on Sportswire. So if you'd like to be on, you're more than welcome to certainly reach out to me, and we'd like to make that happen. Honestly, the criticism made me stronger. It made me ready for the ride I'm on now. There you have it.
And I agree because I went through the same stuff. 2007, 2008, I was bullied and criticized by people that were in the previous generation, and they really gave it to me to the point where I was like, enough of this. I'm going to figure it out. And by the end of the run, they were coming to me. I had people from Canada, New York, Florida, Chicago, all coming to me whenever they started off by making fun of me. So like that arc is incredible. That's something that a lot of people don't get to experience.
Hey, you know what? The best is yet to come, and anything's possible. Yes. And Il Drago says, Malo Zilla to all of us. I think you have some fans, friends, and
it appears so, huh?
Yeah, you have. Want to say hello? Well, hello there. But it's Ashley, who he hasn't seen in years. Well, now you have it. Hey, bud, and hope you're well. Okay, well, I think that we've got all the comments for now. So I think since we're in the halfway point of the show, I'm going to transition to some other things. But I wanted to obviously give you something because, I always like to give all my guests something. And I want to make up for the fact that I couldn't quite give you that introduction in prime time that I give everybody else, that loud intro, because as I stated, my voice is still, it's a little rough right now. So I kind of wanted to make up for that. Basically, I'm going through any other singer, other rapper out there. You're obviously a very successful rapper. You sing and do all that other stuff. You've got hit singles, I'm sure. You're known for that as well. But I wanted to make up for the fact I couldn't give you quite that intro that Rad Dad got and Remy Ravage got and Sean Jovi. And after all, you are a living legend. You are the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be in the backyard wrestling circuit. I have wanted to present you something so everybody here watching and listening can see it, and so I can present it to you when we're off the air. So only if you insist, I'd like to be able to share my screen and present to you something for all that you've done for us in this sport.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Well, I want to make sure, because obviously I know everybody else goes, one guy was like, well, I don't want it. I just want to be here. So I wanted to acknowledge on this date, September 17th, 2024, on all Sportswire radio platforms. That includes YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579, Twitch at Sportswire Radio, X at Thomas Price 2017, LinkedIn. Yes, I am on LinkedIn. The PWF pages on YouTube, also Facebook, also Instagram at the Sports Report 2021, Facebook at Sportswire Radio, Facebook at Tom Bryce, sportswireradio.org, and also Tumblr, and also the Sports Report Facebook page. It is officially now Sick Rick Day. Congratulations, my friend. I will present this to you when we're off the air, and I wanted to go the extra mile and wanted you to have this, and thank you for all that you've done for us in our sport. Thank you for all that you've done in giving us the opportunities to be here and to be able to continue in many ways what you guys did all those years ago. And I just want to say thank you for everything. And we definitely wanted you to have this as a token of our appreciation.
Man, I appreciate this. This is obviously completely unnecessary, but I really appreciate being
this is a different platform. I know you did a podcast a month ago, and I was admittedly a little bored of the podcast. No disrespect to the podcast. I was listening to it, and I'm like, this one's different because Rad Dad even likes coming on here. He does all the podcasts and all these other wankers and all these other Johnny-come-latelys, all these guys that I don't even know their names, but Rad Dad actually likes to come to Sportswire. So that's good enough for me. And Jimmy Controversy of GTS recommends people to come here. And Tarzan Duran, although he was high and wasted, I think, when he was here, but he nevertheless still liked being here. And we've had some pretty good people across the circuit, and we wanted to make sure that we recognize them because I do believe in this philosophy. Baseball has a Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, right? Football has a Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Basketball has one in Springfield, Massachusetts. Hockey has one in Toronto, Ontario, where everything really matters. All wrestling matters. It's here now on Sportswire. So for you, my friend, you have to be recognized. We wanted to take that step of recognizing you and really thanking you for you and everybody else in the GBYWN for what you've done, along with the BYW link, for putting us into the motion of where we are today with all this stuff, the Discord chat, the nightly shows, the Facebook pages, the super shows happening. So we just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done for us.
I mean, thank you, man. And like with something like this, it's always easy to like see your own name there and just think about yourself. But for me, like Sick Rick doesn't exist without Hack Edgeman or Sean Phoenix or even like my favorite backyard wrestler coming up, Scott Henson, who unfortunately passed away earlier this
I
summer.
did see that a few months ago. My absolute condolences for sure.
He was like, I think now it's fair to say that I am the historian of backyard wrestling at this point, just based on the media and the knowledge that I have.
Sure.
But up until a few months ago, that title was held by Scott Henson. He's the person that I strive to be in the community. So like seeing my name just makes me think of so many other people, like it's just, and it's great to be recognized, but it forces me to then recognize all of these great people that have been a part of my life and got me to this, whatever it is in life, whatever I leave behind is because of the people that came with me.
Well, you definitely will have a legacy. You definitely will have, certainly, I think, a lot that people are going to remember you for. And there's no question on this platform, we honor all of our yarders. We honor everybody that's gone out there and done their very best. And I actually wanted to put it up on the screen. I actually wanted to put up that little tribute package with Scott Henson. So for those that can see that here on Sportswire Radio, you can see it there right now. And we put it up. And obviously, we definitely want to remember him and everything that he has done and so many others like him. So we wanted to put that up on the screen for us here and such. And definitely, my condolences and to everybody that was impacted by his memory for sure. So we wanted to put that up for a few minutes.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have different ideas on who would be their Mount Rushmore of backyard wrestling. And I don't know if Scott would have made a lot of people's lists, but for me, he's an easy number one. I mean, like Anarchy Andy, Alex Zane, Matt DeMorris, you're going to find those names across a lot of people's lists. But what Scott contributed to our community and the way that he carried himself and how funny he was and how nice he was and good he was at being a wrestler, like all those things put together created one hell of a person that took what we did extremely seriously. Like he enjoyed being a backyard wrestler just as much as the rest of us did, even though people like him and Anarchy Andy and other people in VCW like Daniel Makabe and Yakuza J, they could have been extremely successful if they had just given their all to professional wrestling. But instead they stayed behind to an extent and did with us. And like they lended their experience to us because they had been doing this for 5, 6, 10 years before the GBYWN era started. So like without them, there are no super shows. The only reason I ever wanted to do one was because I saw them doing it. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to be a part of it? Well, if I can't, I'm going to do my own and I'm going to try to get them to come to mind. And whenever I finally did, and I got to actually work a tag match with Scott, it was unreal. It was, I always said that like I wasn't ready to be in that match until the second the match was over, because I learned so much being in the ring with him that like I would have been ready to go right away. As soon as we were done, I was like, I get it now. But while I was in the ring, I was just so nervous standing across the ring from a guy that was, for all intents and purposes, like my idol in wrestling. And it's somebody that maybe a lot of people at the time didn't know, but if you just saw the outpouring of love whenever the tragedy struck and he passed away, his name was everywhere across the internet for weeks. And like, I'm still seeing pictures of people, like people's Facebook profile pictures are still the Scott Henson logo. And I'm also working on a tribute for him that I'm going to air live at the reunion show for the first time. No one's going to see it until then. And on day 2 of the reunion show, we're going to have the Scott Henson Memorial Gauntlet match, which is going to be an opportunity for a lot of people to get in and get their face seen and do it in memory of Scott, have some fun, have a nice thing that we can do for him.
Well, if there's anything we can do here on Sportswire Radio, we would be more than happy to honor his legacy. Anything that we can do, we always want to honor those, especially in the yard and the underground. And we know it means so much to you and so many others, and we will do anything we can if is something that we can do to help his family and help his fans and everything else, we're always welcome to that. We're very much open door in that sense. Let me ask you a couple things before I move back to the current show for a few final things. And I mean, what advice would you give to these new generation of yarders? We have all these super shows popping up, these different promotions. They seem to be cross promoting here. And Sean Jovi's involved in one super show in Wisconsin versus Illinois, trampoliners versus his guys seem to be labeled the dinosaurs. We've got this backyard havoc now in Ohio, which is now another super show. We're having fall super shows now. And we've had all these different things pop up, all this collaboration here on Sportswire. Wrestlers come on and they come on from different feds and they, cross intersect each other. And we see all the feds and some of them work well with each other. Others, it's to be determined. But what are your advice for this new generation that seems to be popping up here on this platform and others?
Okay, so a lot of my advice is going to sound like I'm old, but that's just because I am. So
No. I ask. Say anything you want.
I think that a very important thing is to be kind to one another. Create a community and be kind to one another, because doing that will get you so much further than being rude to one another and putting each other down. It's just, there is room for competition. Definitely compete. You want to be the best. You want to have the best shows. You want to have the best match. Go all out every single time to do that. But the people that I listed as my goats on my Mount Rushmore of people, Matt DeMorris, Anarchy Andy, Scott Henson, Alex Zane, 4 of the kindest people I've ever met. Those guys would literally do anything for anybody, and they were always super nice and willing to talk and willing to share their information with each other. So in that same vein, I listen to people. Like, whenever people tell you you're doing stuff the wrong way or it can be done better, try to check your ego and listen to what they're telling you. They're not always right, but they're trying to give you good advice. So that type of stuff is very important, to just open your ears more than your mouth and just use the information that's given to you to the best of your ability. And I think the biggest thing overall is just community. Get together, create friendships, have a reason to come back together. You want to go see Wrestler X in statewide at Show Z because they're your friend. And by doing that, that's what's going to create these lifelong friendships. That's what's going to create something that you're going to care about 15, 20 years from now. Because if this is just something that you're doing to try and get some YouTube hits or whatever, that's all well and good, but you're not going to get what me and my friends got out of this. If you want to truly create something that really matters in your life, make some friends, get together, travel, go do the thing. Get in a car with 5 people, pack it deep, and go to Tennessee. I don't know, just go somewhere, do a backyard wrestling event, and have the most fun you could possibly have, and only live in the moment. Just go there and forget all your problems.
That's it. Listen, you can't worry. Listen, you here today, gone tomorrow. That's the only, thing that I always live by. I don't worry about 10 years from now, next year, or tomorrow. I worry about what's today, here in the now frontier. That's just the way I look at it. And I think that everybody should. And I think that what we've tried to do on this platform lately is do with, I think, a lot of that. We've been trying to, I think, focus more on the positivity, focus less on sort of the dirty stuff that you heard or you read about a lot. So I've been trying to focus more on that. Yes, are there some guys come on here and they have bigger followings, or are they going to obviously pull more people out to tune in? Sure. But I think at the end of the day, I think in the long run, you're better off by just focusing on wrestling. And I think that that's really what we're about. And that's what we're all bonded by, because we're from different places, different backgrounds, different parts of the world. But really, we're all bonded by this one universal language called wrestling. And I think really that's what we're trying to put a focus on. And I think that that's why we have been able, I think, to grow the backyard wrestling circuit. Let me ask you, though, 2 other part questions on the GBYWN. But I was curious on, number one, do you think a GBYWN could succeed today? Do you think it'd be something that would succeed in this current day? I know the forums are kind of replaced by things like that and like this and, Discord and other things that, that maybe you didn't have then, like Instagram and Twitch. But do you think the GBYWN in the forum when you guys had it in your heyday would be the same or maybe even thrive more today? What's your thoughts on some of that?
I think that the forum lended itself to a really unique way of building a community, because we would wake up every morning and check the forum. And a lot of us, that's the first thing we do, and we would do it 100 times a day, always looking for the new post and seeing who posted it, you know. And in today's day of social media, everything's a scroll, everything's a swipe. So if you post something at 6 a.m., maybe other people that care about you don't see it when they wake up at 11 or whatever. You know, like that's something, it's already through their timeline. It's there and gone. They missed it. The forum was so self-contained, and the way that it was set up was like, do you want to go see a super show? Click on the super show tab. You go in there, they're all listed in there. Which ones can you make? Which ones are your dates, you know? So I think the best way to do it is, as you just had up on your screen, would be a Discord. Discord is the only thing that I could see even being close to replicating what we had on the forum. And even with that, like, you almost have to get lucky to find the right Discord to have all the stuff in it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you searched Backyard Wrestling and you went deep enough, you were finding the Backyard Wrestling link and you were finding GBYWN pretty easily.
And you had the
And you
wiki, the fan wiki page. I mean, you had, other things. You were an admin in those days, so you obviously, had firsthand experience with that. That's why I was just kind of curious if you think so. I mean, Rad Dad said basically this is kind of replaced it, but this is only, I'm here an hour a day, 2 hours a day. Sometimes if people want it, I'm here longer, but right now my voice can't handle 3-4 hours a day. But the point is that, maybe there's other outlets. I don't know. I was just curious because there's so many companies out there. You guys had 80 plus of them once upon a time. That's why I just thought it was so fascinating. I would say realistically, I don't know, maybe I've had 15 promotions on here, 16. If I count the underground, maybe it's a couple or more, but you guys had 80 plus. That's why I was so curious in that sense.
Yeah, and to be completely honest, a lot of those 80 maybe didn't integrate themselves into the group of community, like into the
Yeah,
board, so to
that's the
speak.
thing here now. I mean, there are some feds that come here and they're kind of insular, and there's probably 6 or 7 of them that they have basically built the platform because they have a machine. I mean, so that's kind of I over the past. I started, just so you know, actually, I started covering, believe it or not, British independent wrestling first. I was actually a guy that covered college sports. That was kind of my nook into this. I had a background in news, and I had obviously got into a British internet radio station. I was approached to have been interviewed a British wrestler who was a boxer turned wrestler during COVID. And it was actually Sean Jovi's home promotion, WC, that saw by chance one of my clips on Facebook, and that's how I started covering backyard wrestling. But I have noticed, that there are some companies that come on here and they're here every night and they share and they're in here, and others are kind of insular. So I think that's kind of part to the course. I don't begrudge anybody. There's just some people that they have things going on, they have time. Some people take it more personal than others, but I think I've learned to basically say, look, people have a lot on their minds. They have a lot going on. And I just appreciate anybody that's here whenever they're here is the way I look at it.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's kind of how it was back in our day too. It was a lot of strength in numbers. So like, if you were willing to come to shows, then please come. Like, we will have 50, 60 people at a show. And that's kind of what I'm working with here. And you have to book, like back in the day, it would be everybody would want a singles match so that they could show off and show out. And luckily, now that we're all older, a lot of people have been very gracious with their time and like, yeah, book me in this fatal 4-way tag team match or 10-man Survivor Series match or what have you, so that I'm not like stressing having a 32 match card. But a lot of the shows that we had back in the day, like, it was not uncommon to see 15 matches and have it take the entire day, because that's just how many of us showed up and wanted to wrestle.
Yeah, I could definitely see a lot of that there. And I think that sort of fits to what was going on with the Backyard Havoc and let's see what happens with the Backyard Brawl. Okay, so obviously I got that. I want to ask you one more question. Did you know that Will Ospreay and Pete Dunne would just do is what they've done? Because I mean, Rad spoke about them a couple weeks ago, but they were in your link. I just thought that was so fascinating. I mean, did you know what they would go on to be, and especially Will Ospreay? I mean, especially him.
No. So did Rad tell the Will Ospreay story on here?
I actually put up I believe I put up some of his match on here, and we spoke a little bit about Will. I mean, if you want to just say a few things on him, you're more than welcome to. You are the best there is, the best there ever will be in the backyard circuit. So, floor is yours.
BXW was like a hub for backyard wrestling from like 2011-ish until 2015, and it was a very important place for us. The environment at BXW was absolutely perfect backyard wrestling. Like it was what, like you were saying, it was like New York, to the point where it was literally in a back alley and there was only room behind their house for a 12 by 12 ring in their little fenced off area. So that's what we had there. And it allowed for um some of the craziest spots you've ever seen. People diving onto cement and jumping off of houses, and all in this tiny little ring. So we had some fantastic shows and great times there. And Will Ospreay wanted to come to the States, and he wanted to come to a BXW show. And whenever he finally got video of it and noticed what was going on, he asked how big the ring was. And someone told him 12 by 12, and he was like, man, that ring is jokes. I'm not coming to the States to wrestle in that shit. So he just didn't come. And whenever that happened, it kind of put a sour taste in a lot of our mouth. Like, we're not too good for a 12 by 12 in Allentown. Why are you? Like, what makes, and like, obviously, if you see the stuff that he's done since then, but like, it was just the ego about him back then that was like, I'm too good for that. Like, what you guys are doing is a joke. And it's like, all right, calm down, buddy. We're all backyard wrestlers here. So it kind of put like a little bit of heat on him from the community for a little bit. But I mean, obviously, he's probably a great person in general, and he's gone on to do fantastic things. So it's always fun to see that. But I mean, even like Adrian Neville, Pack, he came from the backyard wrestling rink.
I know him from the British wrestling scene because a couple of the guys I interviewed either wrestled him or knew him from training. So
yeah, and like even from the British guys, Flash Morgan Webster,
okay,
Wild Boar, they were in a fed called NWW, and that was my favorite backyard wrestling fed. It was them with Dave Williams and a couple other people.
I definitely know Dave Williams for sure.
Yeah, so that whole crew was fantastic. Mark Andrews, I think, might have done.
I know Mark Andrews, another name. I've talked about him in the past.
And then the people that we have, like even right now, Alex Zane was on 205 Live. Tony Deppen, Ring of Honor TV champion. Ricky Shane Page was the MLW champion, and he's still doing stuff. Chad Gable, as Eric Engel
I think
said,
we just had that here in the chat. Yep.
Yeah. And like, so those specific guys doing what they did was not surprising, only because so many of us have. Like, so much of what we did ended up becoming what indie and professional wrestling is, that like it's almost like, yeah, of course our friends did awesome things because we were doing awesome things back then too. Like it was expected that some of these guys, we knew how good these people were. Like it was a big deal to us to see them finally get there. But whenever you see like Alex Zane on Peacock for the first time, of course you're going to be super excited about it. But at the end of the day, we kind of knew that's where it was going anyway. Like, you see what these guys look like in backyard wrestling, and you know how it translates to the pros.
And listen, and that's obviously something we've seen. Anyway, the Hardy Boys came from the yard. Mick Foley, I mean, obviously, I think in some ways the greatest yarder of all time. The Undertaker came out a couple weeks ago and said he was a backyard wrestler for a period. I mean, Shannon Moore, I mean, comes to mind. There's a lot of people. I'm sure there's a litany list of other names that I'm missing. And to me, it's, you know, obviously very important. Skrilla, who comes from the GWC, and Shalance Royal, they were in it from Copper Dragon's Wing, and Skrilla was in Peanut Butter Falcon, MLW. Shalance Royal came and did some really big things. So I'm sure there's a list of 100 different people. And if you are here on Sportswire Radio, please go out, hit the sub button for Golden Triangle Media, Golden Tri Media. They're on Instagram. I'll put up the banner here. Shortly, got another about 20 or so minutes with the legendary Sick Rick, and we want Sick Rick on anytime he wants to come on and talk about anything related to backyard wrestling or anything else on his mind. He is a legend. He is also somebody that's done some music as well. He's been a very successful musician. He's done a lot of big hits. He's got a lot of singles. As a matter of fact, before I come back to the current events, I'm going to put that link up here. You want to check his YouTube channel out, you're more than welcome to go hit the sub button for him. In fact, I got 3 YouTube pages, and I'm going to give him another link here after that. So you want to see some of his music, you got some of that. you like to check some things out, there's some stuff. I know he's done a bunch of big things. You like to check it out. He can actually rap. He's definitely one of those guys that can really drop a bar. I mean, my cousin once upon a time was friends with this guy Necro, who a lot of people were pretty big on. He was a big, interesting guy. You look like him a little bit. You look like Necro a little bit.
I'll take that.
Yeah, and he's an interesting guy. Let's just put it that way. I know a few stories, but let me move on here before I get to promoting the current events here. Matt Nix facing Cody on Dynamite in a Chicago show was my favorite. I lost my mind when watching it live on TV. That shows the impact of what you guys do, you know?
Yep. And not only that, but there was a freelance wrestling chant in the crowd while that was going on. And a lot of people probably don't know this, but freelance wrestling was essentially a backyard wrestling fed come to life. The fed that started freelance wrestling was a backyard fed called BWA, and they were associated with FWA, which was the Freelance Wrestling Association.
Okay.
So they ended up breaking it down, just calling it freelance, and by the end of the day, now it is the premier Midwest independent wrestling fed, I would say. Like, freelance is pretty high up there. Freelance is pretty fantastic. I would recommend checking them out too.
All right, so let's transition back for the remaining minutes of the show. Let's talk about what we're going to see coming up here next weekend. What are some of the other matches? We know your match. We know Rad Hazard is going to be in the ring. But what are some of the other matches that our audience should be excited about?
So Twisted Outcast versus Combat Kid are two fantastic professional wrestlers. Twisted Outcast goes by Craig Mitchell. Combat Kid in the pros is Chase Burnett, I believe, Uncle Chase Burnett. Both of these guys are outstanding, and the thing about them is that back in our times, they were always known as somebody that was going to have a good to great match. But they were never, for whatever reason, the last match. They were never the main event, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it was just because their ego didn't allow them to be. Like, they're just such nice people that, like, yeah, we'll wrestle whoever, whenever, and we're going to kill it. And because of that, like, I booked them against each other to, like, here's your guys' spotlight. Like, you guys both deserve the opportunity to have a singles match in a situation like this, to finally, like, be given the spot, you know? So them doing that thing is going to be great. The GBYWN 4-way tag team title match is absolutely.
I mean, that looks like, a match I would just make sure. I mean, all these matches are, but that's a match I would just want to say, okay, I'm putting everything down wherever I am in the venue and just put my eyes glued to it.
And that's the best part about these type of shows, man. It's like the way that it flows. Sometimes you're inside, sometimes you're outside, sometimes there's wrestling, sometimes there's not. It's just such a hangout and wrestle environment that you never get burnt out. So, like, in between matches, you're sitting for 10, 15 minutes sometimes, and then all of a sudden you're like, what match is next? Oh, it's the fatal 4-way tag match. Let's go, you know? And having, like, Purple Haze, which is Saint Vengeance and TKO, one of the most underrated tag teams in our group. Saint Vengeance was insane whenever he was in his prime, and I'm sure he's still very good. TKO also good. The Healing Process, which is Alex Cross and the Russ. Huge fan of the Russ as a person. Alex Cross is the ultimate. We would call him the shit man instead of the hitman.
Well, there's a guy now who wrestles as Alex Cross in a company that's here Friday Night ROEW, and basically he's considered to be kind of the, let's just say, the guy that loses all the time.
that definitely adds up. That definitely crosses.
Yeah, he's a big loser. Big loser.
The Unnatural Causes are Clayton Cross and Soy Boy, who are independent tag team champions in Florida right now. They're both very good, so they're aiming to bring their tag team prowess to the GBYWN championships and grab the belts. And then Danny Devine and BRB are two best friends out of Connecticut, and like I don't know if they've ever tagged before in their lives, but whenever I found out they were both coming, I was like, this is what I want to do with you guys. How do you feel about it? And they were super about the opportunity, so I just want to see what they do. BRB, giant dude. Danny Devine, maybe a little littler, but if you're familiar with Rad Dad, he has his the stepson, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Danny Devine.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
No,
So
I'm definitely okay. That rings a bell for sure because I watched a lot of Rad's work on his YouTube channel. Yes.
Right. So that because Danny Devine is one of the original stepdads. The original stepdads did not feature Rad Hazard. It was Danny Devine and Patrick Wade Wilson,
Yeah.
aka Kruger.
Yes, Kruger, who now is doing sports betting.
Right. Yeah. So those two were
He's
the
big
original
on that, by the way.
stepdads.
He's actually big. He's got a following for that. He's actually really
Not surprising. He's a very smart and entertaining dude.
yeah, he was really. I was watching one of his videos a couple of weeks ago. I was like, wow, he's really good. He should take over for me on Sportswire because I'm trying to retire from this. When I get to 1,000 subscribers, maybe I'll turn it over to you. You speak really well. You know all the yarders. You're a legend. I'm going to retire and pass it over to you because Jovi doesn't want it, so I'm going to pass it over to you.
Oh man, maybe we'll have to adopt it into Golden Triangle Media. Life's already hard enough over here.
Somebody actually wants to buy this platform, but I think most people know by now that I'm actually worth probably a lot of money to the point that I could maybe buy any promotion except AEW and WWE. So I was kind of laughed and said, thank you very much. I'm going to move on with my merry way. But,
yeah, absolutely.
The community.
Yeah, right. No doubt. Other matches, I mean, the Survivor Series match is just going to be a fun one, the Pennsylvania versus the World.
I love those matches in BYW. I love those Survivor Series matches. I think that's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, and it's going to be an opportunity for some people that maybe didn't know if they still had the chops to see if they do. People that didn't want a singles match for any reason. People that were like, I'll be in a Rumble or something like that. It's like, no, you could be in a Survivor Series match. You won't have to do too much. See if you like it. And then if any of those guys show up day one, maybe day two, we give them an opportunity to do something really cool, But outside of that, like the Tony Deppen versus Eric Douglas match, I mean, that's like a community cornerstone right there. Eric Douglas is the ultimate babyface. Tony Deppen is the ultimate heel. Ooh. So seeing those two against each other, watching Tony Deppen blow snot rockets on Eric Douglas and see what he does about it, it's just going to be very fun for us. The thing about Eric Douglas is he likes to do flips, top rope flips. But for whatever reason, he stands on the top rope for a very long time. So I'm going to see if he could break his record and be up there for a good 60, 65 seconds before he decides to jump off. Just see how long you can milk it.
Oh, I'm excited about all that. It sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, man. It's just going to be and outside of the show itself, and I keep going back to it, it's like just being together with these people again is so much more important than the wrestling that's going to happen. But the wrestling that's going to happen is hopefully going to bring enough watch hours to Golden Triangle Media to get me monetized finally. So,
you're not monetized yet. Well, we got to get you monetized. But maybe you should. Well, when I get to 1,000, I'll be monetized. So I'm sure that you can just. That's why you should take over Sportswire. You could just. I'll go sit and fix my blister on my foot finally and recover my voice and make it heal, and then you can just take over Sportswire. You can interview all the new yarders. I'm sure they'll love to talk with a guy who's a living legend like you. They don't want to talk to me anymore. They're sick and tired of the long intros. They're sick and tired of the New York accent. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. You're more well-spoken. You're more proper. You can drop a bar on them. I really can't drop a bar. I could maybe buy them an ice cream bar or two. But really, the facts are is that they would be more excited to have you on Sportswire and be the host. So maybe that's really what you can go. So I'll get monetized after 1,000, and you can just take over here, and I'll go retire.
All right, man. I'll have my agent talk to your people.
I don't need any people. I'm the man you're looking at right here. I don't need them. But we'll certainly see. But I tell you what, let me get to some comments. I'm going to put this poster up here, and I'm going to keep it up here for a few more minutes. Zane and Deppen definitely did well, too. Proud of all the boys. I remember that chat. Yeah, Necro is a very interesting individual. Necro grew up in the Farragut houses where he grew up, right off, it was right off Ralph Avenue over there. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Let's put it out there. His Uncle Howie, all this stuff is true. But I wrestled Outcast in 2011, had a blast working with him. Well, I'm going to have a blast talking about this, and definitely anybody that is from those days in the GBYWN and the BYW link is always welcomed here on Sportswire, and we definitely want to talk the aftermath of it. Okay, so let me get here to a few more things before we obviously let you go your merry way. And what an honor it's been here. And, of course, also one more time for everybody here watching this, it is Sick Rick D here on all Sportswire radio platforms. We want to thank Sick Rick for the opportunity to be here with us. And prime time, the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the platform he helped build here, All Wrestling Matters on Sportswire radio. But let me ask you this. So I know that this is an event that's going to bring a lot of people together. I know you and Senefante. I mean, I've seen what Kurt Angle said about him. We saw your promo, his promo. But let's just say, and again, I know there's so many hypotheticals, but I have to ask this question because in wrestling, it's never say never. But let's say this event goes the way I think it's going to go. Would you guys do another one next year? Would you guys do a yearly thing? Or is there any thoughts on, depending on how well this does next weekend, could we at the very least see one of these again?
All right, so this is I literally have been thinking about that exact question from the
Well, if
day
you
that
watched
I
my
decided.
shows, you knew I was going to ask you that question. You said you watched
Right.
my stuff. I have a certain style, and I'm sure you knew that was coming.
I've been thinking about that since the day I announced that this one was going to happen. Like, is it the last one, right? And I think a lot of the success that this show is going to have, it will have success. And I think a lot of that is going to come from the fact that a lot of people that are going to be there believe that this will be the last one, and they're treating it as such. So they're going out of their way to make sure that they can come here on their own dime, taking their time off work, taking time away from their families, planning vacations, doing a lot of stuff that's not as easy to do whenever you're 40 as it is whenever you're 20. And
Sure.
I think because people believe that this is the last one, it might be hard to replicate something like this. But there are upwards of 10 people that are very important to our community that couldn't make it this year, that have explicitly told me that if there is another one, they will be there with bells on, and I just have to give them a date and they will figure it out, and they will absolutely be there. So if I put out that any number of these 10, even if it's five of these 10 people are coming to the next one, it will entice people. These are draws, these are friends, these are people that people want to see. Now, we're definitely going to lose some people, because some people, like I said, are very firmly in the boat of this is the last time this is ever going to happen, so I'm making sure I go. But there are other people that maybe want an opportunity to have a little bit more of a spotlight. Like, for example, Eric Douglas. He hadn't wrestled in a long time. He's trying to get back into it. He is very good. He always has been. But a lot of people haven't necessarily seen him outside of his, like, one match that he had at GCW. So offering a situation where Eric Douglas can maybe be a guy in this once-a-year thing, maybe he ends up being one of the future champions or something that allows us to keep building. And I know that there are some people that are interested enough in this happening, but I think for me, the most important thing is next year, if this does happen again, I'm going to need some help, because I have done all this on my own shoulders. I've talked to every single person. I've booked everything. I've planned my own match. I've made all the videos, the flyers, the hype packages. I have done everything. So if this is something that's going to happen again, and I would love for it to happen again, I need some help.
So I'm glad you brought that up. See, I'm very glad that you brought that up, because I think you came into the right place here, because we're the only platform, after all, that really covers these things on a legitimate basis. So I got two answers to that question. Number one, if you do it next year, obviously, we're going to be talking about this as much as these other shows that we've been promoting here on Sportswire over these past several months. And my second point to that answer to that question is, we have all these new shows that have popped up, these summer bashes, these Riot in the Rings, these Backyard Brawl, Devil's Playground, Backyard Havoc. Maybe if those people that are sponsoring and promoting those shows, maybe it would be in their interest to see, well, how does today's yarders go up against yesterday's yarders? I'm just saying. Now, again, I'm not the promoter. I'm not the guy that's booking these shows. I'm not a booker. I'm not a guy that owns the places where these shows are being taken into, where everyone sees the development of it. But I'm just saying out there, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station, your voice, figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters, the Reverend Tom Rice, that the simple answer to those questions is that, well, you come here and promote it months in advance, but if you don't do a show like we're going to see coming up next weekend again, well, if those yarders from yesterday, they want to show that they've still got it, maybe they should go up against these new yarders of today. These guys like Aaron Blaze, the headline, Aaron Blaze, and Sean Jovi, the America's resident rock star, and names like Omen Black, the boogeyman of the Midwest, and guys like Soldier GP, the popular heel monster. Well, he was that. Justin Parsley, a guy who was around in your heyday, but now has had a second run as this first real wrestler, and guys like Anthony Steele, the most controversial figure in backyard and underground wrestling history. Guys like Big Man Cam, a guy that does cameos. Guys like the good guy, CJ Black. Guys like the old head, the nemesis James Taylor, or the evil angel Judas, apparently had his 817, 316-like moment. Guys like Darkron and Matthew Forsaken, guys that have hosted Summer Bash. I mean, we can keep going. There's a slew of guys. Jason Storm, the Cyclone. Jason Storm. And, oh, by the way, some guy named Jack Delta, who was once the destructive Jack Delta, now is the outsider Jack Delta. And can never forget about Remy Ravage, Jake Dvorak, Justin Abel Sane. I mean, there's guys, if you really want to go with trampoliners, how about those guys like Nolan Money McDermott, Tyler Fury? How about guys like Dalton the Executioner, Nicholas Crenson, Darkfire? We can keep going. Some guy Sinister, Craven Rage, whatever name he is next. I mean, there's a whole list of other names out there. Maxwell Reeves, if you really want to go in the infant stage. I mean, we can keep going. So maybe the guys from yesterday, if they're looking for a place, maybe they should look to next year's shows. If you can't do it and put all that on that burden of your shoulders, and maybe they should try out these places because they're supposed to be about open collaboration. All wrestling matters. So, I don't know. Maybe you're in the right place.
Honestly, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think if there is a show next year and we're able to do something along the lines of old versus new, that sounds like...
Let's see if these guys who come on here, yeah, I'm the boogeyman of the Midwest. Yeah, I'm the reigning IMF champ. I'm the headline. Aaron Blaze. I'm the headline. D'Angelo LaFlame, the real raw energy. Big Man Cam, I'm 6'17" with the size 39 shoe. I mean, Remy Ravage has got a lot to prove. Justin Parsley, yeah, I'm the first real wrestler. It's a real one. How about guys like Jason Storm, the Cyclone, BYW, everybody who eats pizzas, Parasites, the good guy, CJ Black, 7-star superstar, C Money. How about those boys in Tennessee? Alan Michaels, the trendsetter, always staying trendy. How about Atomic Titan, who was once the hardcore king, now he's a ringleader. I mean, we can keep going. I mean, how about names like Drake Golddragon? He wrestled Moose. He's still in the yard. I mean, there's plenty of names out there. I mean, I can put hundreds of names. Hundreds of them. I'm probably missing 30 that have come on this platform. How about Gabe Sayers? He's buddies with Doc Holliday. He wrestled Grimm. I mean, there's plenty of names out there.
None of those guys could lace Doc Holliday's boots, man. The old generation.
He's still going, Doc Holliday. Yeah, all these new guys today. He won the Riot in the Ring. Despite all the blood he went through, he beat a guy Power Surge. This guy Power Surge is bigger than WWE guys, and he went past him. I mean, listen. I mean, I'd love to see yesterday's guys go up against today's guys next year somewhere. I'm sure in Bremen, Ohio, they can hold it. I'm sure they can figure a place out, maybe Wisconsin. Who knows, wherever else. Pick a place, pick a location. So if you can't do it, Mr. Rick, I'm sure that these other people out there, like Trey Mysticality would love a shot. Judas the Evil Angel would love a shot. Aaron Blaze, Dominic, I'm sure Jerry, Justin, whoever else is in ALW. I mean, there's plenty of names. Joe Stone's still out there. I mean, Alex Cross versus Alex Cross. Don't worry, that'll be a 30-second match. That'll be 30 seconds. The old Alex Cross will win that match. Monoxide, he's still going. How about guys like Il Drago was in the chat? Definitely got to add him. Felix Jones, Jordan Nets. I mean, I can keep going to names. Isaiah Rage, is he still such a thing? I mean, who knows? I can keep going. It writes itself.
I mean, as soon as you mentioned this, the first thing I thought was if something like that happens, like maybe Rick versus Jovi needs to be a thing. And then I look over in the chat and I see our boy Sean right there. If past, present collide and the stars align, I'd love a match with Rick. I was already.
I'm sure they can. Listen, in Bremen. Listen, I'm sure in Bremen they could certainly host the event, and I'm sure they've already done it. They're doing 2. They've done 3, actually, counting last year. So what's 4 or 5 shows? I mean, listen, there's countless promotions that I'm sure would, Anthony Steele, and I mean, he would wrestle everybody. He's Anthony Steele. I mean, he's back on Sunday. He'd probably tell everybody, yeah, I got the best Claymore since Drew McIntyre. I'll just Claymore all of them into the retirement home. That's what he might say that. I don't think he would, but he would be very confident. A lot of these guys would be very confident. Justin Parsley, who's probably about as old as most of you guys that were in the first Inkling, but has really gotten a new revival, you might want to say. And this one, other guys are out there. Jacob Frost is out there. I mean, Jacob Frost seems to be traveling. Thomas McEntee. I mean, I can keep going. I mean, I can pull yarders from today out of a hat. I mean, I could pull them out of my mutton chops, and we can, I'm sure, pick a time and place.
So what I would say, if any of the people that you just named are interested in doing something like this, and if you're extremely, extremely serious about it, because
anytime I bring up something, it happens. So I'm sure. I mean, Sean Jovi, listen, he knows all these people because again, I'm not a promoter. I'm a nobody. I know nothing. I'm not a wrestler. I'm a nobody really. I'm just a little old podcaster. I'm a nobody. But this guy, he's friends with all these people. They don't like me. They're not friends with me. But I'm sure that this guy, he could talk to them, and I'm sure that those individuals, I'm sure that they might be interested.
Yeah, and if they were and they're serious, because what my group does is serious. We do care and we will show up, but like stuff needs to be in order.
Well, that's the guy because I'm a nobody. They won't listen to me.
Hit me up. Come to me. Find me. I am the voice for our community right now when it comes to other people. So,
well, I'll tell you what. I'm sure this guy here, he can pass it along to his brethren in Wisconsin, Iowa. He can talk to the owner of the property in Ohio. He can talk to the guys in Michigan. He can talk to them in Massachusetts, Connecticut. He can talk to them all over the place. He knows everybody. So, because they're not going to listen to me. They won't. I'm a nobody. They won't. They don't really think much of me, but they think a lot about him. So, well, because we'll see. So I'll tell you what. We'll see on that. Obviously, I know you're a busy man, so I want to ask you two things. First, what's your final thoughts for Marcus Senefante before next weekend?
I'm excited to see him. It's been a long time. I hope that after this is over, we could be the friends that we always should have been. But I'm going to take that pedestal away from him. So you have about 11 more days to enjoy sitting on it, because I'm going to take it with me. I'm going to throw it down and I'm going to set it on fire, because that's not a place that anybody needs to hold in our community. We are all equal. We are all friends. And anybody can beat anybody on any given day. And that means you can beat me, but that also means I can very well beat you. And if I need the help of a couple other people to pull it off, maybe that's what I got to do. But at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be looking at the lights, not me this time.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm very excited about it. And if you'd like to follow Golden Triangle Media, there is a bunch of links here. And we're very excited about next weekend's show. And I'd love to have, obviously, anybody on from the show to talk about the fallout of it and maybe talk to them about what I just said about 5 minutes ago, my own pipe bomb, my own Hiroshima, that I'm sure that Mr. Jovi can relay to his brethren out there in the Midwest, by the way. But let me ask you this last question before I get to closing thoughts. And what's that moment going to be like next weekend, main event, when you finally step foot in that ring? What's that going to be like?
So I've listened to my entrance music and closed my eyes about 100 times in the last month.
All right.
Just trying to live the moment before I have to live the moment, because I know it's going to be overwhelming. But I know that the second that I step in that ring and I'm looking at him across from me, it is game time. It always has been. Even in my match that I had with Scott Henson, whenever I was coming to the ring, I felt like I didn't have legs. I felt like I was floating up until I was on that turnbuckle. And until I was there and waiting for a tag, I thought I shouldn't be here. And then as soon as that bell rings and it's time to go, wrestler brain kicks in and it's time. So I know that that'll happen. I'm just very aware of how overwhelming the entire situation is going to be up until the bell rings. Like just waiting and sitting around that day and watching other people wrestle. And giving an opening promo, which I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to welcome people to the show, right? And I'm very prepared to wear sunglasses because I'm not letting anybody catch me slipping with a tear. I'm ready for it. I'm excited to see all my friends. I'm excited to wrestle for the first time in 10 years. But more than anything else, I'm just excited to give everybody else this opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you what, while certainly Sick Rick is going to be there for a good time next weekend, he ain't going to be just about making friends. He's going to certainly be there to take some action, to kick some butt. And Marcus Senefante very well could be that person that has his butt kicked coming up next weekend at the historic show coming up here. It's the GBYWN BYW Link Reunion Show. It's not dead yet. And boy, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, these guys, they're never going to be dead, because in wrestling, Nobody's dead permanently. Look at Flair. Flair still keeps going out there. I mean, Undertaker, they talk about, is it one more match? The Rock, I mean, they always keep talking about him. Stone Cold, will he wrestle again? I mean, I just saw Bret Hart on Raw. Who the hell knows really anymore? Jeff Jarrett's still going. Chris Jericho holds a belt as if it's like 1997 still. I mean, so at the end of the day, wrestling, nobody is ever dead permanently. That's for sure, ladies and gentlemen. And I do want to get to this couple of final comments. My buddy Devin Laster. Devin hasn't been here in a while, and he says, yes, another hot Tuesday, though in New York, I'm sure it's similar to Pittsburgh. It's been pretty comfortable. Like the last 2 weeks, it's been 75, nice. 75 and comfortable. I'm in the pool, and I don't need to be in the pool that much longer. But I'm going to go in the pool anyway still because I want to be in the pool. But yes, definitely take another hit, and we definitely hope that you enjoy that hit, enjoy your pull, and hopefully you follow Golden Triangle Media. Definitely follow Golden Triangle Media one more time on YouTube. Let's get those watch hours for them. The guys already have the subs, but let's get them those watch hours because, like I said, there is a lot to talk about. There is a lot to go on with that I have no doubt we're going to be very excited for. And we are so honored that Sick Rick was here. And one more time, ladies and gentlemen, it is Sick Rick Day on all Sportswire radio platforms. I will send this to you when we're off the air. And I pass the baton to you, my friend. I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts? And it has been an absolute honor and can't wait to talk about the fallout from this. And anybody else that wants to come on, that floor is open. And I now pass the baton to you, my friend.
First thing, I just want to thank you for like the recognition and all the stuff that your platform has done in honoring our community of people, the people that came before. So with the transition from the Backyard Wrestling Link to GBYWN, the Backyard Wrestling Link people were honored by the GBYWN people. But when GBYWN died, there was no new generation of people readily available to take over. So we didn't get to pass down what we knew to anybody else. It was just over. And talking about all this stuff again and seeing the new people and having them want to do super shows and create a community, it is so nice. Because I was for sure it was done. I thought there's no, like, especially with YouTube now, I thought everybody would just stay in their backyard and try to make their own shows and not even think twice about going across state lines to wrestle. So
it's crazy. We had D'Angelo the Flame. He went from Mississippi, Tennessee to Massachusetts recently. I mean, Justin Parsley is the PWF champion. I know 1/3 of it, and he's been in Michigan, Ohio. I mean, guys are traveling all over the place. We have a guy, Ace Reed from Australia. Ace Reed, who has almost $1,600 US and wants to take that money and he wants to come to America next year. He wants to wrestle in America. I mean, there's a lot of people that they've taken the bull by the horns really in the past year and they've taken it by storm. There's people just literally all over the place that they want to find out who's the best.
Yeah, and I'd love to see that, man, because I was sure that that pretty much ended with us, and I'm so glad that it didn't because I love the community that we built and what we were able to do, and I know how much other people could love it, all just sharing not only a love of wrestling, but just a love of each other and being friends and traveling and doing stuff that 95% of the world might not ever know that you did, but they'll never get to experience it themselves either. Like, I had been to more states by the time I was 19 than my dad made it to his entire life until he passed away. Like, Backyard Wrestling gave me so many stupid, cool, amazing opportunities and crazy stories that I share on the Golden Triangle Media YouTube channel on our podcast, where we talk about some of the most ridiculous things that we've experienced and watch our matches and all the stuff. Just the stories of behind the scenes things that happened are so ridiculous that I think we have over 40 hours worth of podcast stuff and we cracked maybe a year. Like, it just so much. But yeah, like just seeing it all come back together and like your platform specifically and your appreciation for us is reciprocated, man, like for sure. And very professional. Love being on here. Had a great time. And I would love to do it again after the show. We'll talk about what happened.
Listen, the floor is open, just not on my birthday.
Yeah.
My birthday is October 7th, so I don't know if you'll have to show up by then, but I do plan to at least have an open. I like people to just come on the show and just hang out with me on my birthday. Well, other than that, we can find a day.
as soon as the show's over, I'm actually hitting a plane out of state. Like I'm heading out with some of my friends that are leaving. I'm going on a mini vacation for a few days and won't be
Okay.
back until after then. But
All
like
right.
it's finally my unwind time, because I've been working on this show for a year now, and
I
I've
can
been
only
doing
imagine.
everything.
I can only
So
imagine what you've done to
so
put
that whenever
through.
I wake up that Monday morning, I'm hitting the airport. I'm going to see a friend, and I'm gonna have a great time.
Well, you should. You definitely deserve it, and I'm very excited about the show. And I want to thank obviously Sean Jovi and Rad Dad, or AKA Rad Hazard, for granting us this opportunity. And I definitely want to speak with you afterwards. And we definitely want people to follow you guys. I'll send you the certificate here afterwards, and maybe I can even put you in the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame sometime next month, and you can join Rad. I think you deserve it after what you've done for our sport. I think it'd be almost a no-brainer. But I definitely am. Really looking forward to this. I really appreciate what you guys have done. Copper Dragon, I know you don't know Mr. Dragon very well, but he spoke so fondly of the GBYW, and he's been a big voice in our community, the new community, because he was a part of GWC Intensity. That was his show, and that was a huge part of the GBYWN in those days. And he has done a lot to, I think, foster a lot of unity and positivity. So we definitely look after what Mr. Dragon has said, and obviously Rad as well. And congratulations on this show. I cannot wait to watch it. Thank you for all that you've done for us in our sport. And I'm very excited about the future. And there's always an expression that I live by, and that two of them is: the best is yet to come. Community is power. And I'll give you a bonus, actually. A rising tide will always lift all boats. And I have no doubt you guys are going to lift a lot of people's boats. And you guys have done that here in the Backyard Wrestling Circuit. And I can't wait to see what happens next weekend. Congratulations. And boy, you better believe it. You guys ain't dead, and it ain't over by a long shot. Let's just put it that way. And thank you so much, my friend. And can't wait to see you back here in a few weeks.
Thank you, man. I had a great time tonight.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be in the Backyard Wrestling Circuit. The legendary Sick Rick. He is also the owner of Golden Triangle Media. He is also a man that's been a very accomplished rapper. He was an admin in those great days of the GBYW, and also a huge part of things in BXW and so many other promotions. One of the true founding fathers in our circuit, a true OG, and we can't thank him enough for spending so much time with us here tonight. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters. If you're on Sportswire Radio tomorrow, I'm here at the same time with a bunch of other Pennsylvania wrestlers. They're independent wrestlers. I don't think Sick Rick knows them, because most people on the platform don't know them too well. It's Andrew Lovelace and Max Strong. Andrew Lovelace and Max Strong will be here. They actually wrestle in PXW. It's PXW they wrestle in, but they'll talk about that, I'm sure, tomorrow in their situation. Yes, Max Strong comes out with a plastic hammer. It's you believe it, you'd probably chuckle, but he's going to have a lot to say. So is Andrew Lovelace. He's the be-all, end-all, but we'll see about that. I'll be here maybe tomorrow afternoon, but I'm going to say maybe Bentley, UK wrestler, maybe we can do next week. But until then, please follow Golden Triangle Media. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally, where all wrestling matters. And thank you so much for your support out there. Thank you for everybody who tuned in and continues to hit the sub button for me on that road to 1,000 subscribers. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.